Chat. Hello, chat. Are you ready for another installment of UFO stuff with Milty? Hey, how are you, chat? Hi, it's me, Milty. How are you? Hello, everybody. How's it going, everyone? Happy Saturday to you. I hope you're all doing wonderfully and ready to learn about some UFO stuff. So basically, I have a plan. Here's the plan. This is not the full-fledged UFO Stream 2.0. This is only basically a review of the report that came out yesterday and some additional thoughts and considerations. It'll be a couple hours, and our big actual thick UFO stream will be at another time. What I'll probably do is minimize chat for now until I'm done reading through the report, and then I'll take a break at the 1 hour mark, and we can I'll get caught up on Streamlabs and everything like that. I see tender squash in chat, putting YouTube videos in chat and then saying, can't wait to learn a bunch of incorrect physics and find out that pilots can never be wrong, and then puts a resident sleeper face in chat. That's precisely the type of thing that I don't want to read while I'm trying to read the report, because it's just going to, unfortunately, at that point, I'll be sucked down to the layer of arguing like an idiot where he'll beat me at experience. So, I'm just gonna minimize chat for that, and I'll get caught up on Streamlabs at about the 1 hour mark, or after we get through the report itself. But in the meantime, can I see some pogs and claps in chat for Mr. Niceberg? Mr. Niceberg, thank you for the 5 gifted subbies, my friend. Okay, all right. So chat, so here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna read through the report with no additional commentary whatsoever. And then I'll go over it again a little bit with some additional details and commentary from myself. And then we will look at an academic paper from the peer-reviewed Entropy academic journal after that. And it'll all tie together, okay? All right. Without further ado, chat, let's dive into it, okay? All right, so this is the preliminary assessment on unidentified aerial phenomena from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and this is the unclassified report. The unclassified report is 9 pages. The classified report is apparently around 70. So this is the shorter version. If anything happens with the stream, mods, if one of you could just DM me on Discord just to let me know if something happens with the stream, I'll keep an eye out for that. Okay, so the unclassified Office of the Director of National Intelligence preliminary assessment on unidentified aerial phenomenon, dated 25 June 2021. First page, scope and assumptions. Scope. This preliminary report is provided by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, in response to the provision in Senate Report 116-233, accompanying the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2021, that the DNI, in consultation with the Secretary of Defense, or SecDef, is to submit an intelligence assessment of the threat posed by unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP, and the progress the Department of Defense Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, or UAPTF, has made in understanding this threat. This report provides an overview for policymakers of the challenges associated with characterizing the potential threat posed by UAP, while also providing a means to develop relevant processes, policies, technologies, and training for the U.S. military and other U.S. government personnel if and when they encounter UAP, so as to enhance the intelligence community's ability to understand the threat. The Director, UAPTF, is the accountable official for ensuring the timely collection and consolidation of data on UAP. The data set described in this report is currently limited primarily to U.S. government reporting of incidents occurring from November 2004 to March 2021. Data continues to be collected and analyzed. ODNI prepared this report for the Congressional Intelligence and Armed Services Committee. UAPTF and the ODNI National Intelligence Manager for Aviation drafted this report with input from USD, DIA, FBI, NRO, NGA, NSA, Air Force, Army, Navy ONI, DARPA, FAA, NOAA, NGA, ODNI, NIM Emerging and Disruptive Technology, ODNI National Counterintelligence and Security Center, and ODNI National Intelligence Council. Assumptions. Various forms of sensors that register UAP generally operate correctly and capture enough real data to allow initial assessments, but some UAP may be attributable to sensor anomalies. Executive summary. The limited amount of high-quality reporting on unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, hampers our ability to draw firm conclusions about the nature or intent of UAP. The Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, UAPTF, considered a range of information on UAP described in US and IC or intelligence community reporting, but because the reporting lacked sufficient specificity, ultimately recognized that a unique, tailored reporting process was required to provide sufficient data for analysis of UAP events. As a result, the UAPTF concentrated its review on reports that occurred between 2004 and 2021, the majority of which are a result of this new tailored process to better capture UAP events through formalized reporting. Most of the UAP reported probably do represent physical objects, given that a majority of UAP were registered across multiple sensors to include radar, infrared, electro-optical, weapon seekers, and visual observation. In a limited number of incidents, UAP reportedly appeared to exhibit unusual flight characteristics. These observations could be the result of sensor errors, spoofing, or observer misperception and require additional rigorous analysis. There are probably multiple types of UAP requiring different explanations based on the range of appearances and behaviors described in the available reporting. Our analysis of the data supports the construct that if and when individual UAP incidents are resolved, they will fall into one of 5 potential explanatory categories: airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, USG or US industry developmental programs, foreign adversary systems, and a catch-all other bin. UAP clearly pose a safety of flight issue and may pose a challenge to the US national security. Safety concerns primarily center on aviators contending with an increasingly cluttered air domain. UAP would also represent a national security challenge if they are foreign adversary collection platforms or provide evidence that a potential adversary has developed either a breakthrough or disruptive technology. Consistent consolidation of reports from across the federal government, standardized reporting, increased collection and analysis, and a streamlined process for screening all such reports against a broad range of relevant USG data will allow for a more sophisticated analysis of UAP that is likely to deepen our understanding. Some of these steps are resource intensive and would require additional investment. Available reporting largely inconclusive. Limited data leaves most UAP unexplained. Limited data and inconsistency in reporting are key challenges to evaluating UAP. No standardized reporting mechanism existed until the Navy established one in March 2019. The Air Force subsequently adopted that mechanism in November 2020, but it remains limited to USG reporting. The UAPTF regularly heard anecdotally during its research about other observations that occurred, but which were never captured in formal or informal reporting by those observers. After carefully considering this information, the UAPTF focused on reports that involved UAP largely witnessed firsthand by military aviators and that were collected from systems that we considered to be reliable. These reports describe incidents that occurred between 2004 and 2021, with the majority coming in the last 2 years as the new reporting mechanism became better known to the military aviation community. We were able to identify one reported UAP with high confidence. In that case, we identified the object as a large deflating balloon. The others remain unexplained. 144 reports originated from USG sources. Of these, 80 reports involved observation with multiple sensors. Most reports described UAP as objects that interrupted pre-planned training or other military activity. UAP collection challenges. Sociocultural stigmas and sensor limitations remain obstacles to collecting data on UAP, although some technical challenges, such as how to appropriately filter out radar clutter to ensure safety of flight for military and civilian aircraft, are long-standing in the aviation community, while others are unique to the UAP problem set. Narratives from aviators in the operational community, analysts from the military, and IC describe disparagement associated with observing UAP, reporting it, or attempting to discuss it with colleagues. Although the effects of these stigmas have lessened as senior members of the scientific, policy, military, and intelligence communities engage on the topic seriously in public, reputational risk may keep many observers silent, complicating scientific pursuit of the topic. The sensors mounted on US military platforms are typically designed to fulfill specific missions. As a result, those sensors are not generally suited for identifying UAP. Sensor vantage points and the numbers of sensors concurrently observing an object play substantial roles in distinguishing UAP from known objects and determining whether a UAP demonstrates breakthrough aerospace capabilities. Optical sensors have the benefit of providing some insight into relative size, shape, and structure. Radio frequency sensors provide more accurate velocity and range information. But some potential patterns do emerge. Although there was a wide variability in the reports and the data set is currently too limited to allow for a detailed trend or pattern analysis, there was some clustering of UAP observations regarding shape, size, and particularly propulsion. UAP sightings also tended to cluster around US training and testing grounds, but we assess that this may result from a collection bias as a result of focused attention, greater number of latest generation sensors operating in those areas, unit expectations, and guidance to report anomalies. And a handful of UAP appeared to demonstrate advanced technology. In 18 incidents described in 21 reports, observers reported unusual UAP movement patterns or flight characteristics. Some UAP appeared to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. In a small number of cases, military aircraft systems processed radio frequency RF energy associated with UAP sightings. The UAPTF holds a small amount of data that appear to show UAP demonstrating acceleration or a degree of signature management. Additional rigorous analysis are necessary by multiple teams or teams of technical experts, by multiple teams or groups of technical experts to determine the nature and validity of these data. We are conducting further analyses to determine if breakthrough technologies were demonstrated. UAP probably lack a single explanation. The UAP documented in this limited data set demonstrate an array of aerial behaviors, reinforcing the possibility that there are multiple types of UAP requiring different explanations. Our analysis of the data supports the construct that if and when an individual UAP incidents are resolved, they will fall into one of 5 potential explanatory categories: airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, USG or industry developmental programs, foreign adversary systems, and a catch-all other bin. With the exception of the one instance where we determined that with high confidence that the reported UAP was airborne clutter, specifically a deflating balloon, we currently lack sufficient information in our data set to attribute incidents to specific explanations. Airborne clutter, these objects include birds, balloons, recreational unmanned aerial vehicles or UAV, or airborne debris like plastic bags that muddle a scene and affect an operator's ability to identify true targets such as enemy aircraft. Natural atmospheric phenomena. Natural atmospheric phenomena includes ice crystals, moisture, and thermal fluctuations that may register on some infrared and radar systems. USG or industry developmental programs. Some UAP observations could be attributable to developments and classified programs by US entities. We were unable to confirm, however, that these systems accounted for any of the UAP reports we collected. Foreign adversary systems. Some UAP may be technologies deployed by China, Russia, another nation, or a non-governmental entity. Other. Although most of the UAP described in our dataset probably remain unidentified due to limited data or challenges to collection processing or analysis, we may require additional scientific knowledge to successfully collect on, analyze, and characterize some of them. We would group such objects in this category pending scientific advances that allowed us to better understand them. The UAPTF intends to focus on additional analysis on the small number of cases where a UAP appeared to display unusual flight characteristics or signature management. UAP threaten flight safety and possibly national security. UAP pose a hazard to safety of flight and could pose a broader danger if some instances represented sophisticated collection against U.S. military activities by a foreign government or demonstrate a breakthrough aerospace technology by a potential adversary. Ongoing airspace concerns. When aviators encounter safety hazards, they are required to report these concerns. Depending on the location, volume, and behavior of hazards during incursions on ranges, pilots may cease their tests and/or training and land their aircraft, which has a deterrent effect on reporting. The UAPTF has 11 reports of documented instances in which pilots reported near misses with a UAP. Potential national security challenges. We currently lack data to indicate any UAP are part of a foreign collection program or indicative of a major technological advancement by a potential adversary. We continue to monitor for evidence of such programs given the counterintelligence challenge that they would pose, particularly as some UAP have been detected near military facilities or by aircraft carrying the USG's most advanced sensor systems. Explaining UAP will require analytic, collection, and resource investment. Standardize the reporting, consolidate the data, and deepen the analysis. In line with the provisions of Senate Report 116-233 accompanying the IAA for FY fiscal year 2021, the UAPTF's long-term goal is to widen the scope of its work to include additional UAP events documented by a broader swath of USG personnel and technical systems in its analysis. As the dataset increases, the UAPTF's ability to employ data analytics to detect trends will also improve. The initial focus will be to employ artificial intelligence machine learning algorithms to cluster and recognize similarities and patterns in features of the data points. As the database accumulates information from known aerial objects such as weather balloons, high altitude or superpressure balloons, and wildlife, machine learning can add efficiency by pre-assessing UAP reports to see if those records match similar events already in the database. The UAPTF has begun to develop interagency analytical and processing workflows to ensure both collection and analysis will be well-informed and coordinated. The majority of UAP data is from U.S. Navy reporting, but efforts are underway to standardize incident reporting across U.S. military services and other government agencies to ensure all relevant data is captured with respect to particular incidents and any U.S. activities that might be relevant. The UAPTF is currently working to acquire additional reporting, including from the U.S. Air Force, and has begun receiving data from the Federal Aviation Administration. Although USAF data collection has been limited historically, the USAF began a 6-month pilot program in November 2020 to collect in the most likely areas to encounter UAP and is evaluating how to normalize future collection, reporting, and analysis across the entire Air Force. The FAA captures data related to UAP during the normal course of managing air traffic operations. The FAA generally ingests this data when pilots and other airspace users report unusual or unexpected events to the FAA's Air Traffic Organization. In addition, the FAA continuously monitors its systems for anomalies, generating additional information that may be of use to the UAPTF. The FAA is able to isolate data of interest to the UAPTF and make it available. The FAA has a robust and effective outreach program that can help the UAPTF reach members of the aviation community to highlight the importance of reporting UAP. Expand collection. The UAPTF is looking for novel ways to increase collection of UAP cluster areas when U.S. forces are not present as a way to baseline standard UAP activity and mitigate the collection bias in the dataset. One proposal is to use advanced algorithms to search historical data captured and stored by radars. The UAPTF also plans to update its current interagency UAP collection strategy in order to bring to bear relevant collection platforms and methods from the DoD and IC. Increase investment in research and development. The UAPTF has indicated that additional funding for research and development could further the future study of the topics laid out in this report. Such investments should be guided by a UAP collection strategy, UAP R&D technical roadmap, and a UAP program plan. And then we have a couple of appendices. So looking at that, I've reopened chat now. Hi, chat. I reopened it just so I can see you. Hi, chat. Okay, so at first glance, it may not seem like it has a whole lot. It may not sound like it has a whole lot. It may sound like it's mostly a bunch of, yeah, the pilots recorded some weird stuff. Who knows what it is? Cool, sounds good. Keep funding the UAPTF. But let's look into it a little bit more. Okay, let's look into it, and let's look into it in a little bit more detail. But before we do that, I just want to make something super clear. Okay, I know that we talk about UFOs and all sorts of fringe topics in this channel. pretty fringe, bro. But I just want you to know that I have absolutely no vested interest in believing in aliens. I don't. You know what I have a fucking, you know what I have an academic hard on for? The truth. I want to know what the truth is, even if the truth is literally that that this is like secret tech from a government. I just want to know. I just want to know what the truth is. If it's high-tech drones, if it's some sort of weird interdimensional weather phenomena, if it's glorp and blorp from Zeta Reticuli, if it's friends from Proxima Centauri, I don't care. I just want to know what the truth is, and that's how I try to look at this topic. I try to follow where the evidence goes and assign my confidence accordingly. If I see better evidence for one explanation than the other, then I will change my level of confidence. And that's how it goes. To give you some idea, just before I start diving into this report here, I never grew up believing in aliens or anything like that. I thought UFOs were cool when I was a kid, but I grew out of it when I was 7 or 8 years old, and then I ignored it for basically the rest of my life, just because I figured for sure anyone who claims to have actually seen a UFO, most likely it was a misidentification. They saw something that they didn't really understand, like a high-tech military plane or something like that, or it was a hallucination or something. So I just dismissed it. I just wasn't interested in it. I only started to become interested in it in April of last year, when the Pentagon confirmed that some released footage of 2004 UFO incident were confirmed as being authentic. That's when I started to explore it, because I thought, okay, that's interesting. I truly hope that you don't genuinely believe that aliens cannot exist unless we have actual evidence. Never said that. Once I started looking into the 2004 USS Nimitz encounter series, I wanted to get my hands on as much information as I possibly could. And that was where I started to really explore what could be the possible explanations for what went down. So just know ahead of time, while we talk about UFOs on the channel, and I think it's an interesting topic, I'm not desperate for this to be aliens. I don't care what the answer is. All I want to know is the truth, whatever it is. If this is a secret government program, I'd be fascinated to know what that was. That's crazy that we have this technology. If it's any other explanation, all I want to know is what it is. So with that being said, I have started to pick the report apart a little bit, and let's take a gander at that. Okay, so the first thing that I want to draw your attention to here, is where it says that this report is provided by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, or the DNI. Now, the outgoing DNI is a man named James Ratcliffe. And now I decided to Google James Ratcliffe, and let me just say that policy-wise, I think he and I definitely do not see eye to eye. So he is not someone who I think is perhaps a stellar example of what I think a really progressive politician is like. But that's okay. I don't have to agree with him on policy, and I can still listen to what he says on other topics and filter it through that lens. So what I would invite you to do here is, if you're familiar with James Ratcliffe and you're not a big fan, that's totally fine. Try not to listen to this through the lens of your opinion of James Ratcliffe's other policies. Try to listen to this objectively through the lens of him as the Director of National Intelligence. This was him on Fox News a few weeks ago, maybe a month and a half ago, here. Say is that if you look at his facial expression, he does seem to be stuck in a permanent expression of Milton Payne. If you put Milton Payne in chat, tell me that it does not look almost indistinguishable from this facial expression. Am I right or am I right? He kind of has that face a lot. But anyways. So you heard him say right there that they consider as many options as they can to explain what they're seeing. They try to consider weather phenomenon, other governments, other militaries. One of the other things that I'd just like to bring to your attention just real quick, I'd like to think that America is probably in a pretty good position to have a lay of the land of what's being developed by other countries, seeing as how they spent $778 billion on the defense budget last year, which is more than the next 9 highest defense budget spending countries combined, put together. $778 billion spent on the military, more than the next 9 biggest defense budgets put together. So in terms of another country leapfrogging the United States and absolutely leaving the United States in the dust with some completely breakthrough revolutionary technology, the chances not great. I think I can say without being accused of hyperbole that the likelihood that another country has some incredibly paradigm shifting breakthrough in technology is not super likely. Anyways, okay. Here we go.
And, when that information becomes declassified, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about that.
Look at that milk. Look.
Well, that is pretty extraordinary. We so appreciate that you're talking to us about this. Can this year get any weirder? Pandemic, shutdown, UFOs. John Ratcliffe, it's great to see you. Thank you.
Okay, so So I think that's an intro. I think at the very least, all that I hope that would make you do is think, huh. I just want that to be a clip that makes you think, huh, because that's the Director of National Intelligence. This report that we're reading right now comes from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. You just saw the Director of National Intelligence saying that there are many, many encounters that they have that cannot be explained by things like weather phenomenon, other governments, so on and so forth. Okay, so moving on from that. Now, okay, so they say the director UAPTF is the accountable official for ensuring the timely collection and consolidation on UAP. Now, here's where things start to get a little bit screwy, chat. So the former head of this UFO investigation program is a gentleman named Luis Elizondo. The former head of the UFO investigation program in the States is Luis Elizondo, and the program, before it was called UAPTF, was called ATIP, or AATIP, or Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. This is where things start to get a little bit screwy for me, because first things first, I will draw you to Luis Elizondo's official Wikipedia page, okay? On the Wikipedia page, and this, I just use that because this is an easy way to access it, but this is something that's readily accessible. You can find the actual briefing where this happened, but that where it says, Pentagon officials, spokesperson Christopher Sherwood stated, Mr. Elizondo had no responsibilities with regard to the ATIP program while he worked in the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence up until the time he resigned, effective 2017. So the Pentagon's official spokesperson literally said Luis Elizondo had no responsibilities with regard to the ATIP program. Well, that's kind of interesting, because what I have for you here to consider, chat, is a letter drafted by Harry Reid, Senate Majority Leader and Senate Democratic Leader, dated April 26, 2021, and it reads, to whom it may concern, as the United States Senate Majority Leader, I worked with Republican Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska and Democratic Senator Dan Inouye of Hawaii to secure $22 million of funding for what would become known as the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, an unclassified but unpublicized investigatory effort dedicated to studying unidentified aerial phenomena. As one of the original sponsors of ATIP, I can state as a matter of record Lou Elizondo's involvement and leadership role in this program. Mr. Elizondo is a former intelligence officer who has spent his career working tirelessly in the shadows on sensitive national security matters, including investigating UAPs. As the head of ATIP, he performed those duties admirably. So right there, we should be thinking, what the fuck is going on? The Pentagon, in an official fucking statement, says that Luis Elizondo had nothing to do with ATIP. And then Harry Reid, who started the program, says, yeah, I'm the one who put him in charge. So right there, that again, chat, is something that should make you go, Now, the reason for such a casual dismissal of Luis Elizondo's work is that he has been a strong proponent of the idea that at least some percentage, even if it's a fraction of a percent, some percentage of the UFO sightings are something that cannot be explained through the human inventory. And because of that, the Pentagon goes, wow, no. Who's that? Lou Elizondo? That's crazy. This guy's nuts. What? He's never worked with us. Lou who? Lou Elizondo? More like, who Elizondo? Am I right? God, please, he didn't have anything to do with. So anyways, he has maintained that that is basically the basis of his dismissal. He says that Elizondo, and this is apparently available somewhere, this complaint that Elizondo filed with the agency's inspector general about a coordinated campaign to discredit him for speaking out, including Pentagon official press statements asserting that he had no official role in UFO research even after his role was officially confirmed. So that's kind of weird that that would be going on at such a high level. Now, here's the next thing. Here comes the next big tangent. Are you ready? Because take a deep breath. Take a deep breath, because we are about to get weird here, okay? Because the big thing that I want us to focus on here, Chad, okay? This is what I want you to focus on. These are the big things that I want you to focus on here, okay? We're gonna take a bit of a deep dive into the 2004 incident, because you'll notice specifically that they say that they started really looking at these incidences starting in November 2004. So what happened in November 2004? What happened in November 2004 was the USS Nimitz Carrier Group incident. Okay, and we're going to go into that. And I'm going to start by showing you part of Lemino's video. Lemino is a YouTuber who made an incredible video exploring this, and just for a matter of public record, you can see I made sure to ask for permission to look at his video on stream before showing you here. I said, would it be okay with you if I watched your video again on stream and talked about it with my community, giving you full credit and providing links, of course? And Lemino responded and said, yeah, that's all right. Thanks for asking first. So he made a really, really great video on this. Really brought together a lot of the data, and it goes something like this. Okay, bring this over here. All right, we'll go here. 1 second, I'm getting it all set up for you, chat, so it's going to be perfect, because I know that you like it when everything's perfect. Okay, this is a great explanation of the USS Nimitz encounter from Lemino on YouTube, and you can find this video by going here, and you can find his channel by going here. These links are in chat. All right, here is the video. I clicked it and got rickrolled.
The first video was recorded off the northwestern coast of Mexico.
So just as a quick explanation here, because he kind of jumps into when he says the first video. So this is one of the videos that was officially, the authenticity of this video was confirmed when the Pentagon released a statement in April of last year. In April of last year, no, it's not Reaction Milty. In April of last year, the Pentagon confirmed the authenticity of these videos.
In late 2004, the story behind it has been recounted by more than a dozen naval officers, and it goes like this. In early November of 2004, a naval strike group led by the aircraft carrier the USS Nimitz was conducting pre-deployment exercises about 100 kilometers southwest of San Diego. Starting around the 10th of November, radar technicians aboard a guided missile cruiser, the USS Princeton, were puzzled by a series of unidentified radar tracks near San Clemente Island. The tracks did not resemble any known aircraft and would sporadically appear in groups of 5 to 10 at a time. Suspecting a malfunction of some sort, the recently upgraded Spy-1 radar system.
So I'm going to take a quick second to pause it right here to let you know that the Spy-1 radar systems, because America, K-Kona, brother! America has some of the undeniably most advanced high-tech military gadgets on the planet, and the Spy-1 radar system is absolutely revolutionary. It is truly an incredibly advanced radar system. Very, very, very accurate. Now, the one thing that I'm going to say here that I want you to focus on, okay, is that the crew of the USS Nimitz and the USS Princeton, when they started seeing these anomalies that they couldn't explain, these UFOs these UAPs, these unidentified objects coming down from low orbit that they couldn't explain, they reset the entire Spy-1 radar system numerous times, thinking that it was picking up ghost traces, and the only thing that happened is the data that they got was higher resolution. It was just more accurate. So when they reset it again and again and again to see if it was just giving them some weird ghost traces, the only thing happened was they got higher resolution images.
The system was taken offline and recalibrated. Once the system was brought back online, however, the tracks had only become sharper.
I guess I could just let him
Among
say
those
it.
on board were Senior Chief Operations Specialist Kevin Day, who was an expert on the Spy-1 radar system and had 18 years worth of experience at the time of the incident. Day observed firsthand how these unknown targets alternated between slightly strange and physics-defying maneuvers. Sometimes a cluster of tracks would appear out of nowhere and slowly drift south. They were flying too high to be birds, too slow to be conventional aircraft, and did not follow any commercial airways. Other times, they would seemingly descend from space and drop all the way down to sea level in mere seconds. These phenomena continued for several days, and every time they reappeared, the crew would run up to the bridge and use a pair of heavily magnified binoculars to see these tiny specks moving erratically in the distance. On the morning of November the 14th, the crew on board the USS Nimitz were gearing up for a scheduled air defense exercise. They had not yet been informed.
Just wait, if this isn't weirding you out yet. So here's what I'll say. I'm going to preface this by saying this because this is something that I think is really, really interesting. A lot of you may have heard, anyone who sort of looked into the UFO phenomena, the UFO topic in the last 5 or so years, you may know the name Mick West because there was a supposed really, really robust debunking of this incident from Mick West, one of the programmers on Tony Hawk Pro Skater, who said, oh yeah, the video is probably just a bird. That was his, when he saw those videos, he said, yeah, it's probably a bird. I think it's just a bird, and they just didn't know that it was a seagull. Now, the thing is, even though Mick West said that about the video, okay, I personally had a 2-hour conversation with Mick West. And he's a pretty reasonable guy. I had a 2-hour conversation with Mick West, and I asked him, what do you think is the most compelling UFO incident you've ever heard of? Like, what actually gives you pause? And he said, this incident right here with Commander David Fravor. So if you're wondering what literally considered to be the world's #1 UFO debunker, Mick West, what is the one story that he can't explain and that he thinks is the most compelling? He thinks it's this story that you're about to hear right now.
Of the unusual returns picked up by the Princeton. It was a cloudless day and the sea was calm as pilots took to the skies. One of them was Lieutenant Colonel Douglas Kurth, who was flying a single-seat FA-18 fighter jet when he was contacted by the Princeton. He was instructed to investigate an unknown target approaching from the south. The Princeton also wanted to know if he carried any weapons, to which the answer was no. Kurth made his way to the specified coordinates but did not pick up anything on sensors. As he looked down towards the ocean, however, his attention was immediately drawn towards a turbulent patch of water. Kurth claims to have seen a roundish disturbance on the ocean, which appeared as though something was submerged just below the surface. It reminded him of a submarine or ship slowly sinking into the ocean. The Nimitz strike group did...
Okay, I can see that one. That one got some people's undies in a bunch. That's the most dishonest representation of Mick West's statements. Don't take anyone's word for it. Go watch Mick's videos. Okay, go watch Mick's videos and then decide whether or not you think he understands FA-18 hardware better than pilots with 4,000 hours of flight experience. Let's just leave it at that, okay? Yes, obviously Mick West didn't make a video where he just said it's a bird, but it basically boils down to him thinking that it was a complete misidentification on parts of the pilots, which doesn't seem to fly with me. But yes, go and look at his videos, for goodness sake. Don't get upset about my statements about Mick West. Go watch his videos. Come to your own conclusions.
Include a nuclear-powered submarine named the USS Louisville. The Louisville was in the vicinity when Kurth made his observations, so the churning may indeed have been caused by a submerging submarine. If not, then whatever was in the water managed to evade detection by the Louisville's extremely sensitive sonar. Kurth was soon joined by a squadron of 2 tandem-seated F-18s, the lead aircraft of which was piloted by Commander David Fravor. Much like Kurth, Fravor claims to have seen a disturbance on the ocean, which he described as having a vaguely cross-like shape. He thought it resembled a downed airliner and described its size as much larger than a submarine. While Kurth eventually circled back for the Nimitz, Fravor and his wingman decided to get a closer look. As they began their descent, they noticed a white, capsule-shaped craft moving erratically above the disturbance. At first, they thought it could be a helicopter, but there were no rotor blades. In fact, it was perfectly smooth. No markings, no exhaust, no protrusions of any kind. The UFO appeared to maintain a consistent altitude, but made rapid lateral movements with no visible means of propulsion. According to Fravor, it was a bit smaller than an F-18 and resembled a giant mint of Tic Tac. As Fravor continued to descend, his wingman decided to maintain altitude and kept watching from above. Flying in a spiraling downward motion, Fravor was getting closer and closer until suddenly the UFO realigned its axis and began to climb at an incredible rate of speed. Both of them were now flying in a circle. The UFO was coming up while the F-18 was going down. In an effort to close the distance between them, Fravor made a final aggressive turn before the UFO rapidly accelerated up to hypersonic speed and disappeared in a matter of seconds. As they looked down towards the ocean, it was now perfectly calm. Okay, but what about the video? Well, so Fravor and his wingman made it back to the Nimitz. They landed and ran into a different flight crew preparing to head back out. They told them what they had seen and to be on the lookout for anything out of the ordinary. Soon thereafter, another tandem-seated F-18 took to the skies. This time, it was outfitted with an advanced targeting forward-looking infrared camera system. This ATFLIR pod is controlled by the weapons systems operator seated behind the pilot, and the backseater of this flight was Lieutenant Chad Underwood. A few minutes after departing the Nimitz, Underwood detected something on his radar. The unknown target was directly ahead, a few tens of kilometers away. The target's behavior was erratic and unpredictable. Its altitude and airspeed were in constant flux. According to Underwood, it simply did not abide by the known laws of physics. At some point, Underwood managed to get a lock on the target with the ATFLIR camera, and this is when the much publicized video was recorded. At the beginning of the video, we see a UFO being tracked in infrared. Underwood then switches to visible light, revealing an out-of-focus rounded mass in the distance. He then switches back to infrared and alternates between two different zoom levels on multiple occasions. Not much happens until the very end of the video, when the UFO suddenly disappears off to the left-hand side of the screen. As the target was too far away to be seen with the naked eye, neither Underwood nor his pilot ever made visual contact. The Princeton continued to detect anomalous radar tracks for at least 2 more days, and according to Senior Chief Day, they eventually disappeared near the Mexican island of Guadalupe.
Okay, so that's the primary part that I want to show you from the video, but I think it's worth watching. I think it's worth watching. We'll watch the rest of his sort of coverage of this incident, and then we'll get involved. I can see some people like Prostate Tunic getting a little bit hot under the collar here, so I'll sort of explain where my position is coming from in just a minute.
In complete isolation, utterly divorced from any and all surrounding context, this video is extraordinarily unremarkable.
I agree.
It's a fuzzy blob against a featureless background.
Yep.
It's only when you place it in the middle of these truly remarkable stories that the video itself becomes remarkable. When skeptics and debunkers claim that this is a distant airplane, I understand why many are so opposed to that explanation, because the witness accounts say otherwise. A distant airplane can't just zip around the sky as if gravity was non-existent. It doesn't make any sense. Unfortunately, we don't see any of those physics-defying maneuvers in the video. In fact, this fuzzy blob does not do much of anything until the very end, when it suddenly disappears off to the left-hand side of the screen. Now, some claim this is due to a sudden acceleration by the UFO, but it could also be something as simple as the camera losing its target lock. It's difficult to tell. Underwood himself is uncertain about what happens at the end, as he never made visual contact. The witness accounts, meanwhile, are so extraordinary they are difficult to believe. If any regular person claimed to have seen a tic-tac shaped UFO moving erratically in the sky, if you would listen. But when that same story is told by some of the most qualified observers on the planet, it makes you wonder. And it wasn't just one or two. These UFOs were either seen or tracked by dozens of experienced aviators and sailors for nearly a week. They were seen from multiple vantage points and tracked by one of the most sophisticated radar systems in the world. To think that all of them are lying or all of them were deceived by some prosaic phenomena seems absurd. At the same time, there is no way to verify what they're saying. We have no choice but to take them at their word. We don't have the radar data, the radio communication logs, nor any corroborating evidence. Well, except for this pixel-deficient footage, I guess. Some of the witnesses claim there was actually a much longer and much higher resolution video than the one we see today. They claim to have seen this video.
For what it's worth, I think that that's obviously true. They only released like a 40-second clip of one video and a 50-second clip of another video. And as someone who was an operator of one of the most advanced pieces of military hardware on the planet, as one of the first certified drivers of the LAV 6.0, which was at the time, I think it was at least North America's most advanced troop carrier, that we had onboard driver viewer enhancement that recorded video. And if you were seeing something like this, you wouldn't record it like a Snapchat. Like, oh my God, what's that over there? Hold on, I'm gonna record this for exactly 15 seconds. Okay, got it. You would start recording as soon as you saw it, and you'd stop recording when you got back to base. So there's probably 40 minutes of footage, and they've given us 40 seconds, unless you really think that a pilot goes, oh, what's that down there? That looks neat. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and record that and press the record button for 20 seconds. Boop. Okay, that's enough. No, there's more than that. It just hasn't been released.
On board the Princeton, and that the shape of the UFO was perfectly clear as it violently maneuvered.
Ooh, this is really gonna slap on TikTok. What's that down there? Cool. This TikTok is gonna slap on TikTok.
What's interesting about this claim is that when the video was first leaked online back in 2007, the anonymous leaker claimed they had 4 different versions of the video in their possession. 2 of them were said to be shorter, but the 4th was said to be twice as long and supposedly showed more UFO movement. Unfortunately, this extended version has never seen the light of day, and if some of the witnesses are to be believed, it likely never will. You see, on the evening of November the 14th, all the footage and data from these events were supposedly erased. Witnesses claim that 2 men arrived via helicopter who then collected the relevant data before having all the tapes and hard drives wiped clean. Witnesses from both the Nimitz and Princeton recall such a visit and insist that nothing like it had ever happened before. This has understandably led to speculations of some sort of cover-up, that these sightings were that of top-secret military drones or aircraft. While the US military is undoubtedly experimenting with all kinds of cutting-edge technology, it is difficult to believe they possess gravity-defying, hypersonic flying tic tacs. If so, they would possess technology so far beyond anything known to the public, it would be akin to magic. And this was back in 2004. Don't get me wrong, 2004 was a magical time compared to
current year.
But it was still aggressively 2004.
Flat ball! From a disc to a ball right before your eyes. Catch it, flatten it, and let it fly! Flat ball!
I really don't know what to make of this story. After reading, watching, and listening to so many interviews with the people who were there, I'm left with a distinct impression that they're telling the truth. The video, on the other hand, does little to support their claims. Sure, this fuzzy blob may be unidentified, but it's not unexplainable.
So that is what I think, that's what I think is the part that really really requires the most amount of careful consideration, okay? Because if you're going to base your entire opinion on the truthfulness of that incident on the video alone, then of course you're going to be disappointed. The video doesn't look like anything. It just looks like a fuzzy dot that is being recorded from a long ways away, and then the dot goes off the screen. So obviously, if you're going to be basing your entire opinion on just the video, then you're probably going to be pretty disappointed. But what you then have to do is you have to consider the story of Commander David Fravor and his co-pilot and the other FA-18 and both pilots there, and Patrick Hughes, who I believe was the data recorder aboard the USS Princeton, and the radar operators aboard the E-2 Hawkeye spy plane who were overwatching the entire thing. Did every single person in every single one of those vessels lie about what they saw? Did every single one of them lie about what they saw visually? Did every single one of them lie about the data that they saw? It's weird to suggest that every single one of them is coordinating completely on the exact same lie, backed up by footage that was authenticated by the Pentagon. It just really seems weird that every single person is all lying about the same. It just really starts to strain credulity. So anyways, so I think that aspect is interesting, that they focus a lot on the November 2004 incident, because something tells me that because they have all the radar data, right? They have all of the radar data. And for them to include this, for them to include the November 2004 timeline means that it's something that has been investigated for some amount of time between 2004 and the last 17 years. And in 17 years, with their access to all of the radar data and all of the world's greatest minds that they can possibly pay to give them answers, they couldn't tell that it was a bird. That's where that explanation really starts to fall short for me. Now let's continue on a little bit here. So this is what I think is interesting, because this is what it boils down to for me. What I ask is, do you believe that the pilots in something like the USS Nimitz encounter saw a physical thing? Do you believe that they saw a physical thing? If so, then it just opens up a lot of really, really mind-boggling questions. Because it says right here in the report, most of the UAP reported probably do represent physical objects, given that the majority of UAP were registered across multiple sensors to include radar, infrared, electro-optical, weapon seekers, and visual observation. Every single one of those options was in the USS Nimitz encounter. Every single one. They have radar, they have infrared, they have electro-optical, they have weapon seekers, and they have visual observation. They have all of them. Now this is something that I want to drive home. So for anyone who's watching this and still thinks, I don't buy it. I just still think that it's probably another country. Like I think it's probably technology developed by someone on the planet. This statement here becomes important. UAP would also represent a national security challenge if they are foreign adversary collection platforms or provide evidence of a potential adversary has developed either a breakthrough or disruptive technology. So what we can be sure of is that whatever those UAP are, let's take the Nimitz event, whatever those UAP are, they are passing with complete impunity into and out of America's most protected training areas. They can come and go as they want. No one stops them. They completely outclass the absolute most advanced technology that the US has at its disposal. Completely leaves it in the dust. You know what I think is really interesting is Commander David Fravor's co-pilot recently came forward with her version of the events, and she said something that I thought was really interesting. She said that when they got the message to go and check out what this weird radar signature was, that they were on a training mission, so they didn't actually have any armaments, any weapons, any missiles. They had no live ammo. They just had dummy rounds. And that when they got out to the area and saw this Tic Tac thing, she said that she was immediately terrified and furious. She was terrified because it became immediately evident that this thing totally outclassed them. They were not going to be able to catch this. They were not going to be able to stop this thing. They were not going to be able to interact with it at all. It was just running circles around them. And she was mad because she had been sent by her commanders out to engage this thing with no weapons. She was angry with her dispatcher for sending her to investigate this thing when she had no weapons. If it turned out to be something aggressive, they were just going to die. So it's interesting that she said that she felt weird and sort of sickly spooked because it was going circles around them, and angry that her supervisors would send her out there with no armaments whatsoever. But I do think that that's incredibly important, is that if whatever that was in 2004 was made by people, that is even scarier, because it means that some nation out there has developed technology so far in advance of what a $778 billion defense budget can come up with that North America might as well not even have a military. If someone's that far ahead of us and we're spending almost $1 trillion, that is fucking terrifying. So moving on a little bit further, something that I also think is important to consider here is that they mention 144 reports. They mention 144 reports, and they say that the majority of them have been registered since they've revamped their collection process, their reporting process. So if we said, what is the majority of 144? Let's be conservative and let's say 72. Let's say half. If 72 of these incidents have been reported in the last 2 years since 2019, that means that we're seeing 36 a year, or 3 a month, or roughly 1 a week. That means we are averaging 1 new UFO report every week so far. That is a lot of data coming in very quickly. It's also worth noting that once again, the reports that they focused on in this study were reports that were largely witnessed firsthand by military aviators and collected from systems that were considered to be reliable. And the majority came in the last 2 years. And that out of the 144 that they, out of the 144 incidents they had, 1 was identified as a balloon. One of those was identified as a balloon. 1. And 80 of the reports involved observation with multiple sensors. So that can give us a fairly high degree of confidence in the veracity of at least some percentage of these reports. 3 a month is 1 a week on average. I mean, average it out, ding dong. 3 a month. What is 3 divided by 4, and then round up? Sociocultural stigmas and reputational risk may keep many observers silent, complicating scientific pursuit of the topic. And that is an issue. Look at the number of people we've got a pretty supportive community here. We've got a pretty supportive chat, but look at the number of people that are already just rubbishing and saying it's just silly and this is ridiculous to consider that UAP could be anything other than prosaic. The number of people that will absolutely shit down your throat if you try to suggest that any UAP is anything other than something from the human inventory, it's no surprise that more people don't come forward, right? Anyways, okay, we're at the 1 hour mark and I desperately have to pee, so I'm gonna do that, but I'm really quickly gonna get caught up on Streamlabs, okay? I'm gonna do this fast so I can pump you full of more UFO information, okay? So we're gonna take a quick pause. If you need to use the washroom, if you need to get a snack or a drink, go and do that. We're gonna run a quick ad block to turn off ads in the channel, and I'm gonna get caught up on Streamlabs. Then I'm gonna take a pee, and then we'll come back and keep diving into UFOs, okay? All right. Cinity, thank you for the 23 months. Eli Howdy, thank you for the 3, my friend. I am Devros, thank you for the 17 freaking months. Dreamy with the 18 months. Bob the Turtle 88 with the 6. What are you? No, I'm not filling you up like Gatchy W style, chat. Goat Thief, thank you for the 11 months. Meter Maid, thank you for the 5 months. Wombax, you frick, thanks for the 9 months of support. Paul Bark Dog Cop, thank you for the 22. PC Tech, thanks for the tier 2 for 16 freaking freaking months. Bruce Like Juice, thanks for gifting that sub to Dental Brick, and thank you for the 7-month resub. Wombax, thanks for the $5. Okay, it's gonna be revealed, so I wanna come forward and say, hail the Flumbadums. We have lived amongst you for only 2 days and we hate it. You still look cute and we appreciate you. Here are some so-called Moi Rar XD for everyone and Uwu. You know, every now and then when you just really hate reading a message, yeah, I'm having that right now. Buzz, thank you for the 14 months. Yeah, dog, thank you for the 14 months. Queen Lady, thank you for the 2 years. Thanks for the 16 months of support. Awi Boy, thanks for gifting that sub to Desi Dessa. Liquefy the Rich, thank you for the 500 biddies. Love you, Milty, thanks for the Saturday stream. You know it, my friend. Mo Brown, thank you for the 3 months. Owie Boy, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. What the frick? That was nice of you, Owie Boy. Lady Terror, thank you for the 10 months. Solid Line Tim, thanks for the 6. PG Killer, thank you for the 14. Masters 512, thank you for the 6. I'm Rubber, your betch glue, thanks for the 15. Amanda, thank you for the 6. S Ruse, thank you for the 5. Gear Grinder, thanks for the 800 bits. To be honest, I'm the same way with this stuff. I'm super excited at the idea of extraterrestrial life and the paranormal, but I want the truth first and foremost. Nothing gets me more irritated than people coming up with a definite explanation, even though that hasn't been proven. Agreed, heartily. Thank you for the 800 bits, by the way. Evil Hobbs, thanks for the 23 months. Ginger Twin, thanks for the 2 years. Xeno Nova, thanks for the 7 months. Closer to the Edge, thank you for the 25. JTC, baby, with the 5,000 bits. What? Totally convinced there are aliens because I'm holding out hope that I can be like Commander Shepard and bang at least 3 to 4 different species of humanoid aliens that I assemble on a dream team mission to stop the Reapers that are coming to end us all in a galaxy-wide extinction event. Boy, that was oddly specific. Thanks for the 5,000 bits, JTC, wanting to bang a bunch of blue aliens. Oh my God, isn't that ever? Who here in chat would want to assemble a dream team of bangable humanoid aliens? There's a few of you perverts out there. Don't act like there isn't. Crazy Skier, thanks for the 16 months. Lauren XI, thanks for the tier 2 for 19 months. Screaming Violet, thank you for the 27 months. Voodoo Stride with the 8. Antonius Big with the 23. Call Me Crispo gifted a sub to Opal Moth. Original Grandeur gifted, that came in with a 21-month resub with those huge hands. You know I got them. Miss Landers, thank you for the 3 months. Volley with the 26. Heather 1982 with a 7. Mama Rama Arts with the 7. The Dwarf Drados, thank you for the 3 months. Traxon with the 7 months. Queen Ham with the 6. Casual Links with the 18. Yes to the Hess with the 6. Star 7 or S with a prime. More Cowbell with the 8. Zedski with a 3. Baddie here gifted a sub to Alpine Jones, thanks for the $3. Pump me, Daddy T. Milton. No, that's not. I'm not pumping you, okay? Now you're getting me hot. You're making me hot, chat. Now I gotta turn on my air conditioner. Get me all bothered. Trying to get me out of my clothes. McDrunken EM, thanks for the 15 months. And Clizian, thank you for the 13, chat. I'll be right back. Gonna take a quick pee-pee, and I'll be right back, chat. Okay, chat, no freaking smoking. Do not listen to Wayward start smoking. Okay, so moving on. Now here's one of the things that I think is interesting, chat, okay, is that they say specifically that there was some patterns developing in terms of shape, size, and particularly propulsion when it comes to UAP. That was scary fast. I'm a fast peer, like real fast. I try to get as much blood out as I can. Okay, so the reason that this is important is because in order for the government, in order for the military to classify something as a genuine UAP, it has to meet a certain number of criteria, and one of those criteria is no visible form of propulsion. no rotors, no engines, no visible exhaust, no wings, no finned surfaces, no heat signature, transmedium travel. And that sort of technology is where things really start to get a little bit, or that sort of behavior of a UAP is pretty intriguing. One of the questions that a lot of people will say is, well, if UFOs are real, like if UFO, why is it that just the American government, why is it that just America gets UFOs? Why don't we hear UFOs coming from other places? Well, they address that in the report. They say that this may result from a collection bias because, you know, America has such incredible radar data and sensors that of course they're going to be picking up more UFOs than places that don't have, the countries or nations that don't have such advanced military capacity. So I think that's important here. So once again, here they say that in 18 incidents described in 21 reports, observers reported unusual UAP movement patterns or flight characteristics. So here they once again talk about UAP remaining stationary in winds aloft, just like the Nimitz encounter, maneuver abruptly, which has to be, that has got to be the most vague way of saying instantaneous acceleration I've ever heard. So much of this report seems to be wordplay to try not to be alarmist. So rather than saying, chat, that's a word. Listen, I'm just trying to introduce more words into your vocabulary. It seems to me to be an sort of unnecessarily thesaurus-like way of saying instantaneous acceleration is to say maneuver abruptly, and then they say or move at considerable speed. What's an unconsiderable speed? Is 10 miles an hour an unconsiderable speed, or 100 miles an hour? What is a considerable speed? 50 million miles an hour? So I wish they could be a little bit more specific with some of these statements, like maneuver abruptly, like what, jumps? Is that what it does? Anyways, but the big thing here is that they say without discernible means of propulsion. So when you see something that is moving abruptly or at considerable speeds with no visible form of propulsion, that is where you should start to go, who could have that technology? Now, here's another interesting thing here. The UAPTF holds a small amount of data that appear to show UAP demonstrating acceleration or a degree of signature management. I mean, the thing that I don't really, maybe it means acceleration management. So you'll hear me use a term every now and then. I call it inertial dampening. And once again, they seem to, I bet they think inertial dampening is either too confusing or upsetting or something like that. So when they say acceleration management, what they mean is inertial dampening. And what that means is that they have radar data and things like the USS Nimitz encounter, for example, where objects go from 20,000 miles per hour to a standstill instantaneously. Just boop, boop, boop. And we don't know anything that can do that. We don't know. We have never seen a human creation that can accelerate instantaneously and stop instantaneously. No acceleration, no deceleration, just from boop, boop, boop. Exactly. You got it. Boop. That's what it does. Boop. So I think that bears some careful analysis. And when it says a degree of signature management, I think they probably mean that you can't see that it has a heat signature, and that signature management could mean a heat signature, and it could also mean that the FA-18s that were attempting to engage it were unable to get a lock onto the Tic Tac entirely. Even in the videos that the Pentagon released, FA-18 pilots have come out to say that the system was unable to get the correct elevation of the object. Now, something that is really important to consider here is that active radar jamming technology is considered an overt act of war when you're in another nation's training area without permission. If you are in another country's training area without permission and you are jamming radar, that is an act of war. And this fact is known by at least the top 10 military defense budget countries in the world. So why would they do it? Why would they risk it? Who who would even be able to afford that kind of technology? Those are the questions that I would like to be carefully considered. If other countries know that to jam radar is an act of war, why would any country come into America's waters and do that? That's spooky, man. Anyways, okay. So, now here's something that I also think is interesting here. The UAPTF has 11 reports of documented instances in which pilots reported near misses with UAP, so close to these things that they classify it as a near miss. One of the weirdest stories that's going around the like UFO world and is being discussed by people like Lou Elizondo and stuff like that is a story from just a couple of years ago. I think it's the USS Theodore Roosevelt incident, where basically they talk about two FA-18 pilots flying side by side, and one of them dekes off to the left at the last second because they just about came into collision with a translucent sphere with a black cube in the middle, just up at like 8,000 feet. Just a translucent sphere with a black cube in the middle, and they almost hit it. And they have no idea what it is. And there's been a lot of reports of that since then. Similar reports of people encountering these things. Now, for what this is worth, I know that this is anecdotal evidence, chat, but I thought that this was kind of interesting, so I'm going to quickly save this. Just give me 1 second, chat. Let me see if this works. Can I open this? I can. Excellent. Okay, so I thought this was kind of interesting. I got a DM today, chat, that I think is... okay, good. This person says, feel free to share this. I think this is kind of interesting. I got this DM today. Says, hi, Milton. I know you're big into UFOs, so maybe you'll like this. I work on a tall ship in the Great Lakes in southern Ontario. We operate all summer and fall, mostly in Georgian Bay. When you're out in the middle of the lake, there is zero light pollution. One night back in 2018, we were crossing Lake Erie on our way to the Detroit River. It was around 1 a.m. and there was a headwind, so we had to take down our sails and use the engine. The night sky was beautiful. It was the only thing keeping us awake when all of a sudden this great big gray semi-transparent ball with a black cube in the ball flew past us, going at least 20 knots into the wind. It stopped about 100 meters directly ahead of us and seemed to match our speed as it wasn't getting further or closer. About 2 minutes go by with me and my watch shining lights on it and just sitting there in awe. Then it shot 90 degrees straight up into the sky and faded out of view. It made no noise and seemed to have no means of propulsion. I've been sailing in the Great Lakes for almost 10 years at the time, and I know this wasn't another ship or some type of helicopter or even an illusion. I still have no idea what it was. If you have any idea what this is, please let me know. Feel free to share this as well. And this is basically what it looked like. And this is the picture that they sent me. And this is precisely what the pilots recorded seeing. A black cube sitting inside of a translucent sphere that pilots almost hit. So that is, once again, something that makes me go, huh. Now, pilots with co-pilots reporting near misses with objects that they could not identify. This should be cause for concern and very careful analysis. If our literal most highly trained expert observers with 4,000 hours of flight experience and millions of dollars training them cannot identify anomalous objects that they almost collide with, this is something that deserves some very serious and intense scrutiny. Now, here's where we come to what I think is one of the most important statements in the report, and that is the following statement. We currently lack data to indicate that any UAP are part of a foreign collection program or indicative of a major technological advancement by a potential adversary. We continue to monitor for evidence of such programs given the counterintelligence challenge that they would pose, particularly as some UAP have been detected near military facilities or by aircraft carrying the USG's most advanced radar systems. So, and this follows what I think is one of the other most important statements of this report, and I quote, "We were unable to confirm that classified American military systems accounted for any of the UAP reports we collected." So of all of these UAP reports that they've collected, and of all of the UAP reports that they've looked at, and 143 out of 144 couldn't be explained, they say specifically that they have no data to suggest that it's something from another country, something from another government, or something from an American special access program. That's an important revelation. For them to say, yeah, they're weird, we don't know what they are, but for them to include in the report, it's, as far as we know, it's not from a foreign government. As far as we know, it's not indicative of a major technological advancement by a potential adversary, and it's not from a special unacknowledged special access program in the States. That is that's a fairly significant statement, I think. And what I also think, this is something else that you should consider, chat, and I mean this genuinely. This is something that should make you go, huh? If this technology is made by humans. Let's say that Tic Tac that we saw from the 2004 video, let's say that it is a human, it's made by another government or something like that. Why have we not seen any of it upscaled since then? Whoever has this technology wins, period. They win. If you have something that can go 20,000 miles an hour and start and stop instantaneously and all the rest, you win. Every other country must bow down to you if you have that technology. Why haven't we seen it scaled up? If we've seen that the USS Nimitz encounter was almost 20 years ago, we haven't seen any of that technology being replicated or upscaled or anything like that in 20 years. Wayward says, well, Milton found something he wasn't supposed to. See you soon, chat. Need to go flashy thing his brain again. God damn it, I didn't want to fly up to Canada tonight. No, you can't come and flashy thing me. You can't do that so many times. Anyway, so I think that that's something that bears analysis, is if this really was human technology, why have they done nothing with it? Don't flash your thingy to Milty. Yeah, don't flash me with your thingy. Okay. USAF data collection. Oh yeah, so here's where basically I was saying that one of the things that I think is really interesting is that the United States Air Force specifically ran a 6-month pilot program in 2020 to collect in the most likely areas to encounter UAP. So that's good. I hope they are more they're more open with the data that they collect from those encounters. Now, that's all that we really have for this paper, but what we're going to finish off our UFO discussion with, chat, is an academic, peer-reviewed scientific article from the academic journal called Entropy, mostly headed up by the Department of Physics at the University of Albany. And this paper is called Estimating Flight Characteristics of Anomalous Unidentified Aerial Vehicles, Department of Physics, University at Albany, and the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, Fort Myers, Florida, and it has 3 authors. This is the abstract, chat. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's basically, they have one paragraph to tell you what the paper is about, and it reads as follows. Several unidentified aerial phenomena encountered by military, commercial, and civilian aircraft have been reported to be structured craft that exhibit impossible flight characteristics. We consider a handful of well-documented encounters, including the 2004 encounters with the Nimitz carrier group off the coast of California, and estimate lower bounds on the accelerations exhibited by the craft during the observed maneuvers. Estimated accelerations range from almost 100 Gs to thousands of Gs, with no observed air disturbance, no sonic booms, no evidence of excessive heat commensurate with even the minimal estimated energies. In accordance with observations, the estimated parameters describing the behavior of these craft are both anomalous and surprising. The extreme estimated flight characteristics reveal that these observations are either fabricated or seriously in error, or that these craft exhibit technology far more advanced than any known craft on Earth. In many cases, the number and quality of witnesses, the variety of roles they played in the encounters, and the equipment used to track and record the craft favor the later hypothesis that these are indeed technologically advanced craft. The observed flight characteristics of these craft are consistent with the flight characteristics required for interstellar travel, i.e., if these observed accelerations were sustainable in space, then these craft could easily reach relativistic speeds within a matter of minutes to hours and cover interstellar distances in a matter of days to weeks proper time. Once again, this is from the Entropy Academic Journal. This is a peer-reviewed journal. This isn't just some hokey trash science. This is peer-reviewed by a group of scientists to make sure that it is cleared for release, and it was reviewed by 3 anonymous academic authors just so that there was no conflicts of interest too. And they even have a statement to clarify how they made sure that there was no conflicts of interest. So here's some interesting things, chat. This is where the story gets a little bit deeper. So here they say that UFOs have been observed for some time. The United States Air Force led a series of projects: Project Sign, Project Grudge, Project Blue Book. Now, one of the interesting things you'll note here is that Project Sign 1947 was started as a response to Roswell, and then it was shut down and Project Grudge was started, and then that was shut down and Project Blue Book was started. Here's some interesting food for thought for you, chat. First of all, Project Blue Book, it turns out, was a program that was basically designed to debunk UFOs. They looked for a civilian scientist to help debunk a lot of the UFO claims that were coming up. So they hired a civilian consultant by the name of Dr. James Allen Hynek, or J. Allen Hynek rather. And J. Allen Hynek headed up Project Blue Book. And it's really interesting if you look at his public statements. At first he said, I think UFOs are just prosaic. It's just misidentifications and people being hysterical. And by the end of Project Blue Book, he had completely reversed his position. He said that he was ashamed of the way that he had led the program, that he saw that he had been fed misinformation and told to shut these things down, and that the volume of reports that he had received were such a high caliber that he could no longer participate in the program, because he saw that there was something here that wasn't being explained, but that people were desperate to say, just cover it up, just explain it away with something. So it's really interesting. You should look into Dr. J. Allen Hynek to give you some idea of just how strongly he felt about this. He has a fucking cameo in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He has a cameo at the end when the UFO lands and the aliens get out. The actual Dr. J. Allen Hynek comes out with pulls a pipe out of his mouth because he thought the movie was so insightful. Anyways, okay, so they say, oh yes, now here's the thing that I think is important. A couple of notes. Here they also say that these academic authors know that other nations, including Australia, Brazil, Canada, Chile, Denmark, France, New Zealand, Russia, Spain, Sweden, the United Kingdom, Uruguay, and the Vatican are also conducting their studies on UFOs. But here's what I think is interesting is that the Project Blue Book, when Project Blue Book was canceled, they came up with a publication called the Condon Report. And the Condon Report basically said, okay, we've been studying this for 22 years. There's nothing really going on here. We have no reason to believe that there's any actual interesting information. It's not the Condon Report. The Condon Report, chat. The Condon Report. The Condon Report basically said, yep, we've been studying it for 22 years. There's nothing really here, so we're just going to shut it all down. We can't even justify funding Project Blue Book for another year, so we're just going to shut it down. Now, isn't it interesting that we get this report yesterday, and the whole thing says we need more resources, we need better funding, and we need better reporting? Isn't that interesting? That it completely contradicts the results of the Condon Report. not the cum-dum report. So they also say these unidentified craft typically exhibit anomalous flight characteristics, such as traveling at extremely high speeds, changing direction or accelerating at extremely high rates, and hovering motionless for long periods of time. Furthermore, these craft appear to violate the laws of physics in that they do not have flight or control surfaces, wings, propellers, engines, any visible means of propulsion, apparently violating Newton's third law, and can operate in multiple media such as space, low Earth orbit, air, and water without apparent hindrance, sonic booms, or heat dumps. All that is important information. So basically in this paper that we're about to go over, they estimate the lower bounds for accelerations. They get some estimates of how quickly these things might be moving, and then they take the lowest possible estimate. They assume the slowest possible speeds. We demonstrate that the estimated accelerations are indeed extraordinary and surprising. While one cannot prove that any one of these craft is extraterrestrial in origin, we show that their observed accelerations are consistent with accelerations required for effective interstellar travel. So in their case studies, they say encounters were selected from a subset of cases for which there were multiple professional witnesses observing the UAV in multiple modalities, including sight, radar, infrared imaging, etc. This subset was selected based on the fact that there was sufficient information to estimate kinematic quantities such as speeds and accelerations. Due to the professional standing and expertise of the witnesses and the fact that both qualitative and quantitative agreement among a significant number of witnesses employing different imaging modalities, it is assumed that the relevant details of the events were not fabricated or embellished. Seth, you doing okay? Of course, in most situations, one cannot rule out such possibilities. However, it is unlikely that this would occur with multiple independent corroborating witnesses. Assuming that any one of these cases we examine is based on accurate reports, we show that the UAVs exhibit unreasonably high accelerations ranging from 100 G to well over 5,000 G. Chat, if you're wondering what sort of G-forces the human body can withstand, let me Google it really quickly. How many G-forces can a human endure? How many G-fuels can a human drink? Normal humans can withstand no more than 9 G, and even that for only a few seconds. So you can withstand 9 G for a few seconds. Anything more than that kills a human, and anything more than 35 Gs destroys electronic equipment. Any known computer system is absolutely fried after 50 Gs. The V1T rocket can reach 50 Gs and can be maneuverable at 35 Gs, but they have some UAVs exhibiting 5,000 Gs. So here it says, so this is an interesting one. This is the Bethune encounter. On 21 February 1951, Lieutenant Graham Bethune of the U.S. Navy experienced with 4,150 Navy flight hours and 1,340 civilian flight hours, was flying Navy R5D Bureau number 56501 with Lieutenant Commander LCDR Fred Kingdon and Lieutenant Noel Koger. They were doing a passenger flight from Iceland to Nova Scotia. It was a clear northern night. About 4.5 hours out of their departure, Lieutenant Bethune noticed a yellow glow below the horizon, approximately 30 to 35 miles away, that appeared to be city lights. They contacted navigation, confirmed that there were no ships in the area, and they woke up the sleeping crew members to come up and look at it as well. When the lights were about 5 to 7 miles away from about 30 degrees to the right, the lights went out and a circular yellow halo appeared on the water. The halo changed from yellow to orange and then to a fiery red when it rose suddenly to meet them, turning to a bluish red around the perimeter. It arrived at about 100 to 200 feet below their altitude in a fraction of a second and about 200 to 300 feet in front of the airplane. The UAV was observed to be a metallic disc-shaped object that was about 200 to 300 feet in diameter. The UAV flew with the airplane for about 5 minutes and was witnessed by most of the passengers on board before leaving at a speed in excess of 1,500 miles per hour, which was later confirmed to be 1,800 miles per hour by Gander Center Radar, Newfoundland, Canada. It should be noted that the airspeed record of 698 miles per hour was made almost 2 years later in November of 1952 by General J. Slade Nash flying a North American F-86D Sabre. So once again, they witnessed an object flying 1,800 miles an hour that was verified by Gander Center radar in Newfoundland, when the world airspeed record was set 2 years later and was almost 30% lower than what they recorded on radar. Now they show here what some of the speeds would end up being. And then they go into the calculations that they use to estimate how the G-forces that this thing would have been pulling, which is interesting. They go over all the very complicated math. I won't go over it right now because it's been 15 years since I've done trigonometry. But rest assured that once again, this is co-authored by 3 people, and it's a peer-reviewed academic article for what that's worth. I'm not saying that every single academic article should be taken wholesale, but it should definitely increase your confidence in the data to know that it's peer reviewed. Anyways, once they did the estimations based on the radar data, based on the eyewitness testimonies, based on what the passengers saw, based on what the crew saw, they estimate the acceleration of the UAV was at least on the order of 10 to the 3.23 or 1,700 Gs. 1,700 Gs. It was 300% lower. Yes, that is what I meant. Sorry, you're right. I meant it was 30% as much, not 30% less. 1,700 Gs, chat. 1,700 Gs. A human can withstand 9 Gs for a couple of seconds, and this thing pulled 1,700 Gs. That would turn you into paste instantly. So then they go on to look at a Japan Airlines Flight 1628 in the year 1986. Captain Kenju Terauchi and his crew Takanori Tamafuji and Yoshio Tsukuda described seeing 2 unidentified objects approach their airplane from the left. A larger round UAV about the size of an aircraft carrier, 4 Boeing 747s in diameter, with lights running around it, later approached and followed the flight for about 31 minutes. This large UAV was also tracked on a United States Federal Aviation Administration ANFPS 117 long-range 3D azimuth range height phased array antenna radar with a range of 5 to 250 nautical miles and a range precision of less than 50 meters. So this is being tracked once again. This is being witnessed by pilots and passengers, and is being recorded by a long-range radar system. The radar data revealed that the large UAV stayed about 7.5 miles away from the plane, maintaining that distance as it bounced around the airplane, occasionally changing position from one side of the airplane to the other within one 12-second radar sweep. We considered 2 possibilities. In the first case, we considered that the UAV moved linearly, in which case the mean acceleration was estimated to be 68 G. So about 7-8 times more what a human body could endure. The second possibility was that the UAV traveled around the flight in a circular motion, in which case they anticipated a centripetal acceleration of 84 G. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. And then they go into detail about the Nimitz encounters. The Princeton's radar systems detected as many as 20 anomalous aerial vehicles which could not be identified. The available data consists of eyewitness information from both the pilots and the radar operators, Freedom of Information Act releases of 4 Navy documents, and a Defense Intelligence Agency released infrared video of a similar encounter later that day taken by an FA-18F jet using an ANASQ-228 Advanced Targeting Forward-Looking Infrared at-FLIR system. We estimated the accelerations of the UAV is relying on radar information from the USS Nimitz former Senior Chief Operations Specialist Kevin Day, eyewitness information from CDR David Fravor, Commanding Officer of Strike Fighter Squadron 41, and a second Jets Weapon Systems Operator LCDR Jim Slate, and 3 analyses of a segment of the DIA released Advanced Targeting Forward-Looking Infrared video from an encounter later that day. The following descriptions of the Nimitz encounters were summarized from the more detailed study published by the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. So basically, all you need to know from here is that they are making these estimates based on all the data they possibly can. Data from the pilots and radar operators who were actually there, as well as documents that they requested through FOIA. So basically, they're saying that on 14 November 2004, the date that they mentioned in the other paper, radar operators on the USS Princeton were detecting UAPs appearing on radar at about 80,000 plus feet altitude to the north of CSG-11 in the vicinity of Santa Catalina and San Clemente Islands. Senior Chief Kevin Day informed us that the Ballistic Missile Defense BMD radar systems had detected the UAPs in low Earth orbit before they dropped down to 80,000 feet. The objects would arrive in groups of 10 to 20 and subsequently drop down to 28,000 feet with a several hundred-foot variation and track south at a speed of about 100 knots. Periodically, the UAPs would drop from 28,000 feet to sea level, estimated to be 50 feet, or under the surface in 0.78 seconds. Can you imagine something going 28,000 feet in 0.78 of a second? That is so unbelievably fast. That's insane. 28,000 feet to 50 in 3/4 of a second. So they do some very complicated math here to figure out what the most conservative estimates for this object's movement. And it says here, the most probable acceleration was found to be 5,370 G. While the mean acceleration was found to be 5,950 G. 6,000 Gs. What the fuck? We have missiles. The most advanced missile that we're aware of can do 50. This can go 100 times faster. 100 times faster. With acceleration estimates in hand, we obtained a ballpark estimate of the power involved to accelerate the UAP. The UAP was estimated to be approximately the same size as an FA-18 Super Hornet, which has a weight of about 32,000 pounds, corresponding to 14,000 kilograms. Since we want a minimal power estimate, we took the acceleration as 5,000 G and assumed that the UAP only had a mass of 1,000 kilograms. The UAP would have then reached a maximum speed of about 46,000 miles per hour during the descent, or 60 times the speed of sound. 46,000 miles per hour, or 60 times the speed of sound. So the required power to do a maneuver like that peaks at a shocking 1,100 gigawatts, which exceeds the total nuclear power production of the United States by more than a factor of 10. For comparison, the largest nuclear power plant in the entire United States of America, the Palo Verde Nuclear Generating Station in Arizona, provides about 3.3 gigawatts of power for about 4 million people. So the biggest nuclear power plant in the power plant in the States generates 3.3 gigawatts, and the move that they saw that UAP make would have taken 1,100. Basically, what happened with the Commander David Fravor incident, Senior Chief Day operating the Spy 1 radar system on the Princeton detected UAVs entering the training area. As the F-18s approached merge plot, which is the point at which the radar could not differentiate the positions of the F-18s and the UAV, Fravor and Slate, the other pilot, noticed a disturbed patch of water where it appeared as if there was a large object, possibly a downed aircraft, submerged 10 to 15 feet below the surface. As they observed the disturbance from 20,000 feet, all 4 pilots spotted a white UAV shaped like a large cylindrical butane tank or a Tic Tac candy, moving erratically back and forth, almost like a bouncing ping pong ball, making instantaneous changes in direction without changing speed. The Tic Tac UAV was estimated to be about the size of an F-18, about 56 feet in length, 10 to 15 feet wide, but had no apparent flight surfaces or means of propulsion, and its movement had no apparent effect on the ocean surface as one would expect from something like rotor wash from a helicopter. The UAV seemed to take notice of Fravor and rose to meet him. Fravor said that the UAV was gone within a second. As a comparison, Fravor noted that even a jet at Mach 3 takes 10 to 15 seconds to disappear from sight. LCDR Slate described the UAV as accelerating as if it was shot out of a rifle and that it was out of sight in a split second. Now, here's where things get really fucking weird, chat. As if this wasn't weird enough, here's where things get really weird. They say, on their way back, they received a call from the Princeton that the Tic Tac UAV was waiting precisely at their cap point. Senior Chief Day noted that this was surprising because those coordinates were predetermined and secret. Given that the cap point was approximately 60 miles away, the probability of selecting the cap point out of all the locations within the 60-mile radius to within a 1-mile resolution is 0.0088%. So to explain what happened again, as they were looking at this Tic Tac and it saw them suddenly and started matching their movements and then pew, shot out like a rifle. Moments later, Senior Chief Day said that Tic Tac is currently at your cap point, 60 miles away, which has protected coordinates. So it is neither clear how the UAV determined the cap point coordinates nor why it would perform such a maneuver. So in trying to calculate the G-forces involved for the maneuver that it did as it shot past them, they determined a mean acceleration of about 550 Gs. Please note that this is a lower bound, probably far below the observed acceleration if the UAV accelerated briefly as if shot out of a rifle and then traveled at a constant speed. Did I have anything else on here? They go into the math of the AtFleer videos, which I don't find particularly compelling just because the videos are pretty low resolution. So here's what they say in the discussion, chat. The discussion is where I think this is really, once again, chat, I just want to reemphasize this, okay? I just want to reemphasize this. I can't say this enough times. Goski Gator, thanks for the 5 gifties. Love you, buddy. Once again, chat, I just want to reemphasize, okay? This is not me stating this, okay? This is in an academic article published in 2019 in the Entropy academic journal from the Department of Physics at the University of Albany by 3 different authors, reviewed by a number of third-party auditors before being published. Because wait until you see what they say in the discussion, chat. Discussion. In some situations, the information available consisted of eyewitness descriptions. However, in each of these cases, the eyewitnesses were trained observers, and these encounters were selected because they involved multiple witnesses observing in multiple modalities, including visual contact from pilots and passengers, radar, and infrared video. While fabrication and exaggeration cannot be ruled out, the fact that multiple professional trained observers working in different modalities corroborate the reports greatly minimizes such risks. The fact that the estimated accelerations of encounters spanning over 50 years all fall within 2 orders of magnitude of one another, and that they are far greater in magnitude than one would expect, serve to further minimize the risks of fabrication or exaggeration. The observed UAV accelerations ranged from about 70 G to well over 5,000 G. For comparisons, humans can endure up to 45 G for 0.04 of a second with no injurious or debilitating effects, but this limit decreases with increasing duration of exposure. For durations of more than 0.2 of a second, the tolerance decreases to 25 G and decreases further still for longer durations. These UAV may not have been piloted, but instead may have been remote controlled or autonomous. However, it should be noted that even equipment can only handle so much acceleration. For example, the Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II has maintained structural integrity up to 13.5 G. Missiles can handle some higher accelerations. The Crotale NG-VT-1 missile has an airframe capable of withstanding 50 G and can maintain maneuverability at up to 35 G. However, these accelerations are still only about half of the lowest accelerations that we have estimated for these UAVs. The fact that these UAVs display no flight surfaces or apparent propulsion mechanisms and do not produce sonic booms or excessive heat that would be released given the hundreds of gigawatts of power that we expect should be involved strongly suggests that these anomalous craft are taking advantage of technology, engineering, or physics that we are unfamiliar with For example, the Tic Tac UAV dropping from 28,000 feet to sea level in 0.78 of a second involved at least 4.3 times 10 to the 11 joules of energy, assuming a mass of 1,000 kilograms, which is equivalent to about 100 tons of TNT, or the yield of 200 Tomahawk cruise missiles released in 3/4 of a second. One would have expected a catastrophic effect on the surrounding environment. This does not rule out the possibility that these UAVs have been developed by governments, organizations, or individuals on Earth, but it suggests that these UAVs and the technologies that they employ may be of extraterrestrial origin. So what they're saying is that they're not necessarily doubting that it's humans controlling the UAVs. They're saying that it seems to suggest that the technology has an extraterrestrial origin. So maybe something crashed, they picked it up, they reverse engineered it, and now they're making shit out of it. But they're saying that it likely has an extraterrestrial origin. While the extraterrestrial hypothesis can neither be verified nor ruled out at this time, it is useful to consider whether the characteristics of these UAVs tend to support or rule out the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Given the estimated accelerations of these UAVs, it is useful to consider the time it would take them to travel interstellar distances. Figure 7a illustrates how long it would take a craft accelerating at 1,000 G to reach various percentages of the speed of light. In just less than an hour, a craft accelerating at a constant 1,000 G would reach 10% of the speed of light, which is NASA's goal for the planned 2069 mission to Proxima Centauri. Nice, that's the sex number. In less than 3 hours, the same craft would reach 30% of the speed of light. Such a craft accelerating at a constant 1,000 G for half the trip and decelerating at the same rate for the remaining half would reach Proxima Centauri within 5 days ship time, due to the fact that it would have been traveling at relativistic speeds for most of the trip. However, for those of us on Earth or anyone on Proxima Centauri B, the trip would take over 4 years. As a comparison, a craft accelerating at 100 G would reach 10% of the speed of light in 8.5 hours, 30% of the speed of light in just more than a day, Proxima Centauri in a month and a half. In their conclusions, chat, it is difficult to draw any definitive conclusions at this point regarding the nature and origin of these UAVs, other than the fact that we have shown that these objects cannot be of any known aircraft or missiles using current technology. We have characterized the accelerations of several UAVs and have demonstrated that if they are craft, then they are indeed anomalous, displaying technical capabilities far exceeding those of our fastest aircraft and spacecraft. It is not clear that these objects are extraterrestrial in origin, but it is extremely difficult to imagine that anyone on Earth with such technology would not put it to use. Even though older sightings are less reliable, observations of seemingly similar UAPs go back to well before the era of flight. Collectively, these observations strongly suggest that these UAVs should be carefully studied by scientists. Unfortunately, the attitude that the study of UAVs or UFOs is unscientific pervades the scientific community, including the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, which is surprising, especially since efforts are underway to search for extraterrestrial artifacts in the solar system, particularly on the Moon, Mars, asteroids, and at Earth-associated Lagrange points. Ironically, such attitudes inhibit scientific study, perpetuating a state of ignorance about these phenomena that has persisted for well over 70 years, which is now especially detrimental since answers are presently needed. So, and that's the end of the report. Now, that pretty much sums up the meat of the presentation portion, chat. Now, let me see some nodders in chat if this simply gave you something to think about. Give me some nodders if this simply made you go, huh. If this made you go, huh. Can I see some nodders? That's all I want. I'm not trying to convince you of anything, chat, because I don't know what they are. I have no idea. I don't make any definitive statements about what these phenomena are. I have no idea. I have no idea. I'm not saying it's aliens. I'm not saying it's anything. All I'm saying is that based on all of the data that we have and all of these estimated accelerations, I just find it just seems less and less likely that it's something from the human inventory, but I don't know what else it could be. I have no idea what else it could be. I don't know that it's some green alien piloting a silver disc. I have no idea. But the likelihood that it's something from the human inventory just seems less and less and less likely. Because one of the things that I think is interesting, and that this is the one that I'll just sort of drive home, is that they specify they basically specify, okay, here they say, we've demonstrated that if they are craft, then they are indeed anomalous, and that is one of the primary findings of the report that the Department of Defense released, where they say, let me find it here. Basically, there we go. Most of the UAP reported probably do represent physical objects. So for them to say most of the UAP probably do represent physical objects, and for studies like this to say if they are indeed crafts, then they are truly exhibiting some phenomenal characteristics. For me, at the very least, this just makes me think, very interesting. Now, chat, to finish things off, does anyone have any questions? If you have any genuine good faith questions, hit me with it. I want to know. Let's discuss this a little bit. Let's talk a little bit. Hold on, I'll put you on the screen, okay? Give me 1 second, actually. I've got a plan. We'll get real spoopy together. Okay, and then if I do this. If you have any questions about anything that I presented tonight. Oh, you want a link to that paper? Yeah, give me a second here, chat. If you have a question for me, tag me in chat and ask it. I'll get you a copy. Actually, you know what? Hey, if you want this paper, chat, join the Discord. Discord.gg/Kiki. I will just drop it into the general channel. I'll drop it into the general chat channel right now. Okay. Got it. Okay. Now, I'm gonna close this. Okay. We'll close all these. Excellent. All right. Now, I will do this. Nice. That's a bit better. Okay. And we'll talk. Up. And I'll put you here. Oh, get over here, chat. What are you doing over there, you little creepers? There we go. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can answer some of these questions. May not be able to answer all of them, but I'll certainly try to answer some of them. And we'll do... There we go. Okay. All right. Let's see. I'll try to answer some of these questions as well as I can. Okay. In any of these reports, is the term UFO used, or is it just UAV or UAP? A lot of the terminology that's being used these days is specifically UAP, and it's specifically to avoid the stigma of the word UFO, because the word UFO does have a bunch of stigma associated with it. Chat, I'm gonna be right back. I'm just gonna get a quick drink, and we're just gonna run a quick ad block. And don't worry, I'm using Chatterino, so I will be able to see your questions. Okay, I'll be right back. If you've been sitting for the last hour and 14 minutes, get up and stretch your butt cheeks. We're gonna run a quick ad block to turn off ads in the channel, and I'll be right back to answer more of your questions. Okay, I'm gonna go get a soda. I'll be right back. right, I'm back, chat. Okay. Alrighty. Stop your Borpa spinning, by the way. Okay. Alrighty. Let's see here. Okay, so Clay Plus Plus says the possibility of it coming from the human inventory is still possible, even if the surrounding evidence supporting it would be very unlikely. It is absolutely still possible. Unlikely, but still possible. Boxers or briefs? Neither. I wrap my nether region in stinging nettle. Okay. Where do I think UAPs come from? If I'm being totally honest, I have no idea. I genuinely don't know. I legitimately do not even have a theory. I don't even have a theory as to what they are. The only thing that I think, oh, what is the drink? The drink is, drumroll, Pepsi. Pepsi Zero. Okay. Now, so where do I think UAPs come from? If I'm being totally serious, I don't know. Yeah, I genuinely do not know. I genuinely do not know where UAPs come from. When I first started looking into this and I first started looking into the Nimitz encounters and stuff, I thought aliens for sure. Aliens from another planet. They're here. They're watching us. And now I have no idea. I've read so much. I've read so much into the people that have spent their lives studying this. Serious academics like Jacques Vallée, very respected French individual who's been studying UAP forever, and he started out thinking that it was aliens too, and now he says he has no idea. Maybe some part of it is alien, maybe some part of it is interdimensional, maybe some part of it is some weird element of the space-time fabric that we don't understand. So my genuine answer is I have no clue. No clue. Am I an alien, says Silas the Explorer. Would you believe me if I told you that I'm actually an alien and I've been sent here to try to introduce these ideas to you through a fun medium like Twitch, so that maybe it'll make the ideas a little bit more approachable to you? Would you even believe me if I told you? Okay, do you think that the moon is made of cheese? No, I don't think the moon is made of cheese. I think the moon is made of chalk. Why is CFB Wainwright a posting is my question. That's what we really, those are the answers. Those are the questions we really need an answer to, for sure. Do you think that they're bending space around them to travel in such a way that was described in the article? So a lot of people want to know what sort of technology would allow this kind of travel, this instantaneous acceleration and stuff. And Bob Lazar, I have a lot of misgivings about Bob Lazar. Do I think Bob Lazar is telling the truth? I'm going to settle with a real hearty, I don't know. But he says that it could be something like an incredibly dense isotope, and like a element 112, element 113 or higher. And it could be a spacefaring civilization that has access to a stable isotope of one of these heavier elements. And then we recently discovered in the last few years that gravity travels in waves. We didn't know that. We found out that gravity travels in waves. So if there is some sort of gravitational wave emittance from a heavy element, and they have some kind of as of yet unknown wave amplification technology, then they could amplify the gravitational waves from a reactor core made out of a stable isotope of a super heavy element. If they can manipulate those waves, they can create gravitational shielding around a craft, and that will allow them to simply travel like between the fabric of space-time. You pretty much create like a mini black hole in front of the craft and distort space-time around the craft as it travels. That is one of the theories right now. Has it been proven? Not necessarily, but it seems to be ostensibly a theory that could have some gusto to it. What do you think the possibility of the US being behind all of this, since the report was from us? What are the chances that I think that this is like technology from the US and all the rest? I'd say maybe 10%. I'd say 10% chance it's just all from the US. How are you sure this is not the government testing on itself? Just because it just seems like an incredibly unclean way to do it. I don't have a particularly cogent theory to retort to that, but it's basically, it just doesn't really make sense. It wouldn't make sense for the privatization of secrecy to be so compartmentalized in the military industrial complex that one special access unacknowledged program is testing some sort of absolutely mind-blowing technologies in an information vacuum. No one else knows that they're there. They don't know that the carrier group is going to be there. No one stops this from being reported. No one stops it from being recorded. No one stops the pilots from talking about it. It would just seem like a really, really messy way. So I don't really know that it's not the government testing on itself, but it just doesn't seem to meet much of the data. And for anyone else who's worked in the government before, they're probably not that smart. Okay. How do you feel about the report of objects breaking physics as we know it? I'd say that I feel indifferent because in the year 1903, the headline article in New York Times said, and I quote, "It will take millions of scientist hours and millions of years before humans will ever reach the moon." Guess what we did fucking 66 years later? So what I mean to say by this is that I am perfectly comfortable stating that I think in the year 2021, we absolutely do not have a complete categorical grasp of all the laws of physics. So I'm not alarmed by something that appears to be violating the laws of physics. It doesn't mean that it's breaking the laws of physics. It means we need to update our laws of physics. It means someone else has a more complete understanding of physics than we do. So I'm not upset by it. I think it just shows that we have more to learn. We, in the year 2021, when 120 years ago, we said that we would never even get to the moon, and then we did that 60 years later. Today, for us to be seeing something that looks like magic, I think could later be revealed to be advanced technologies. I just think that the likelihood that that technology exists right now in the human inventory and was made by humans seems unlikely. If no heat, how does infrared pick it up? Well, it's not that it exhibits no heat. Like you can't measure the temperature of something and have it show up with nothing. I think it just means that it has like background heat or something like that. How open are you to not believing? I'm being completely serious that I am completely open to not believing. If they came up with if the US government came up tomorrow and they said, okay, the UAPTF was given another $10 million and we found that it was this access program in the States and it is that Tic Tac is actually an American drone technology, blah, 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 blah. I would say, okay, now we know, good. And I would 100% believe it. Well, I shouldn't say I would 100% believe. You should never 100% believe anything. At the most, you should 99% believe something. Always leave 1% that you can be mistaken. But if I was presented with convincing evidence that it was from the human inventory, I would go, yep, you got it. That's crazy. That's awesome technology. But I believe it. I think the paper is well written, but I wonder if the authors had a predisposed position on how they wanted to display the info. I mean, that's sort of the point of peer-reviewed articles, though, right? Is to ensure that they're not imbuing it, or to do their best to ensure that they're not imbuing it with bias. And that's why they made a statement at the end of the paper disclaiming their lack of conflict of interest, and that it was reviewed by 3 anonymous auditors before it was published. So I don't necessarily think it was done in an inauthentic way. What if it's multiple projections or objects that cloak and uncloak to appear we are able to move crazy distances and turns? We could then destroy enemy bases and blame aliens, right? Yeah, the false flag theory is one that has been talked about a lot. The idea that this is all a plan for the military industrial complex to shore up some funding for their activities, and that this is basically their way of fundraising. They're going, oh my God, look at all these crazy things happening. Insane. Just give us billions of dollars so we can look into it for you. But I haven't seen a lot of evidence to support that. Did you see the videos of the triangles above Shanghai? I did. I even shared it on Twitter, but I'm pretty sure now that it was a shadow. I ended up seeing a few more pictures taken from the ground level up, and it very much looks like a projection of the side of the building. So I'm like, way less confident in the Shanghai Triangle video. Since the 1950s craft exhibit characteristics similar to the 2004 craft, doesn't that mean that whoever made them has not made observable advancements in their technology? So we can assume then that their speed was not relativistic and of a different nature. Yeah, I mean, well, I don't necessarily know that we can make any sort of confident statements about what they could or could not have done with the technology in the last 60 years when we can barely even see them for more than a couple seconds. What do you think the answer to what UAPs are? Yeah, so I really genuinely don't know. I just don't think that it's from the human inventory. That's the only thing that I say. I don't think. I don't know. I just don't think that some percentage of the observed UAPs are from the human inventory. Outside of that, I have no fucking clue. Does this change your faith in UFOs at all? Increase or decrease? I think the report increased my confidence that this is something pretty exotic, because they make statements in the article, in the report, saying we have no data to suggest that it's from a foreign government. We have no data to suggest that an adversary has made a breakthrough in disruptive technologies. We have no data to assume that it's from a US, that it's from a domestic program, but that we have clear evidence that suggests that it's under intelligent control. Not like ice crystals, not like swamp gas or the light from Venus being reflected. This is something that appears to be under intelligent control, and they think it's not from the US government, not from a foreign government. That immediately makes me go, oh shit, well, I mean, we're sort of running out of options. It doesn't really sound likely that it's from the human inventory. Isn't that sort of distortion in viewpoints when UAP was waiting at the pilot's next waypoint, similar to time distortion when the object you are observing travels faster than the speed of light? It absolutely could be, LT Smokin'. Have you seen the interview with Lou Elizondo a few days ago where he was asked what the world would look like for the next week if the public knew what he knew? Oh yeah, so remember, chat, how I mentioned Luis Elizondo, former head of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program? He just did an interview the other night with someone, and in the interview, the person asked him what I thought was a really, really interesting question. The person in the interview said, if the American public knew what you know after being an ATIP, what would the next week look like? And his answer was somber. Very, very somber. And the guy said, what do you mean by somber? And he said, if people knew what I knew being the head of ATIP, I think it would require us to grow up as a species. We'd finally have to start asking some really difficult existential and theological questions and evaluate that we're likely not the main characters in the universe's story. It was really interesting, but he said he didn't say scary, he didn't say spooky or anything like that. He just said it would be somber, and he said that a lot of people would have to. The interesting thing, he said that he wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of people turning to religion and a lot of people turning away from religion, which I thought was another interesting element. So this phenomena can't always be explained by our current science. The phenomena clearly isn't always nuts and bolts. It goes back thousands of years. After lots of research, I tend to believe it's not extraterrestrial, but ultra-terrestrial, meaning beings or entities from another dimension. Research the work of Jacques Vallée. Exactly. Jacques Vallée is a big proponent of the interdimensional hypothesis. Do you think that the government refuses to give us definitive answers that aliens are real? Okay, here's one of the things that I really want to drive home, chat, okay? Here's one of the things that I really want to drive home, because I think this is really important. This bears emphasizing, because a lot of people think, why wouldn't the military just say? Why don't you just release the videos? Just tell us what it is, give us the data, release these videos. If you are part of a complex that is funded to the degree of $778 billion a year, and your singular purpose is to defend your nation, how likely would you be to release a report that says, hey, just checking in, thought everyone should know there's some shit flying around in our most protected training areas, but we have no idea what it is or how it got there or where it's coming from, and there's absolutely nothing we can do to stop it, and it totally outclasses even our most expensive technology. Anyways, make sure you keep voting for increases in defense spending. Like, the military's singular purpose is to defend the nation, and so it's obviously going to be very unlikely that they're going to come forward and go, shit, guys, have you seen this shit flying around? We have no idea what that is. What the fuck is that? The hell's that Tic Tac thing? Fuck. We don't have anything like, what the fuck is that? Probably aliens. They would never say that because a $778 billion military industrial complex is not going to come right out and say, we have no idea. It's probably aliens, but we don't know. They would never say that because they're basically saying, hey, you know, all the money that you've been wasting on us is worth nothing. So, that's what I would say. Do you think that they have the ability to navigate time or bend time and space to appear to move at high speeds? Okay, so this is a little bit fringe, okay? Chat's gonna be like, Milton, you're being kind of fringe right now, bro, okay? You're being kind of fringe. So prepare for something that's a little bit fringe, okay? In order for quantum mechanics to work, Einstein died while trying to create what he called the theory of everything. He wanted to find a unifying theory that tied together the fundamental forces of the universe. Strong nuclear, weak nuclear, electromagnetic, gravity. He wanted to find something that ties them all together, and he couldn't, and he died before he died while trying to figure this out. But he said that one of the things that stood in the way of him developing this theory of everything was the fact that in order for quantum mechanics to work, there had to be between 9 and 19 more dimensions. We live in 3. Some people consider time to be a 4th dimension, but we live in 3 with a 4th kind of dimension of time. But Einstein said for quantum mechanics to work, there must be between 9 and 19 more dimensions that we just can't even perceive. So if some percentage of this phenomenon that we're seeing is a higher dimension artifact, it would make sense that they're able to do things like teleport to the fucking cap point and all the rest. Because if time is a dimension, then something that's living in the 6th or the 10th or the 15th dimension can walk through it the same way that you and I can walk up a set of stairs or something like that. Once again, this is a fringe theory that is just sort of from my own research into it. So just to answer that question. Do you know if the military went to check where the Tic Tac craft were hovering over the sea to see if there was something underwater? They did, and they didn't find anything. When they went back, they didn't find anything. Have you, are sightings like in the paper you shared today seen by both witnesses and tools like radar, or is it possible it was just electrical noise causing interference? No, these are sightings that are cross-referenced from pilots, crew, passengers, and radar. The examples that I went over anyways. Okay, what is your opinion on abduction stories since the UAP's acceleration caused lethal Gs? Well, it's not that they cause lethal Gs, it's that according to what we know about conventional propulsion dynamics, they would cause lethal Gs. But if these things are using non-conventional physics, then it wouldn't be a big deal. Whatever's inside a gravitational bubble would be safe from those effects. If some country found alien technology and tried to reverse engineer it, wouldn't they need extra knowledge to do it? Considering the UFOs have such absurd physics behind them, that is. So unless it comes with a detailed manual, I think it's very unlikely that it would be human handiwork. So this is why I think that the idea, and Bob Lazar actually mentioned this, but I think it's a really good point. I'll explain it like this. In terms of the likelihood that we would be able to reverse engineer a UFO, imagine we had a crashed spacecraft from a civilization that was 10,000 years more advanced than humans. Imagine we, right now, were able to send a miniaturized nuclear reactor back in time 1,000 years. Just 1,000 years, not 10,000, 1,000 years. We send it back. We ship it off to England. Fucking King Edward is sitting there in his castle when a miniaturized nuclear reactor shows up at his doorstep, and he says, "Hither, hark! Listen here, plebeians! Fetch that glowy thing, bring it inside!" So they bring in this miniaturized reactor, and he goes, "Ooh, what is that? Someone investigate it for me!" And they're flipping switches and they're fucking with it. And eventually they figure out how to turn it on. They turn on this reactor and it like glows, turns on a light or something. And they go, "Ah! Oh, glorious! Look, marvelous! Look at it doing it here! It's beautiful!" And then the king said, "Now take it apart. I want to know how to make more of those. Disassemble it and tell me how to work it." So eventually they're fucking with it. And one of them opens the protective shielding, and everybody in the room dies. So they send some more people in to see what happened, and all of them die. So they send in some more people to see what happened to the people that went to check on the people, and all of them die. Then they would just rope off the entire castle and say it was haunted and never come back to it, right? Because there would be no fucking way that humans 1,000 years ago would have any fucking way of even conceptualizing a nuclear reactor. And that's just 1,000 years. So what would happen if there was technology 10,000 years more advanced? It would be, who fucking knows? The expression that they always use is sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So I think that's a good way to word it. Okay, let's see here. An aquatic species, perhaps. There's some interesting theories out there to suggest that at least some of the UAPs we're seeing are from some intelligent species that is living in our oceans. Now, I know, once again, that sounds kind of fringe, bro, but you should look at the number of reported encounters with USOs, unidentified submarine objects, because a lot of shipping vessels and fishing vessels describe seeing absolutely massive, like football field sized craft under the water in the deepest parts of our ocean, which would make a pretty good place for them to hide, because the oceans are so deep that only our most advanced and expensive technologies can even get down there to check it out without being destroyed. So, you so fine, Milton? Shut up. Okay. Have you ever seen a UFO in a dark sky? They look amazing. I wish. I mean, I've seen some UFOs, but they were probably just satellites or something. Okay. How likely do you think it might be that UAPs are some natural phenomena that we cannot yet explain with our knowledge of the world? For example, ball lightning. I don't think so, and that is only because things like with the USS Nimitz encounter, where the Tic Tac showed up at the cap point, that appears to me to be under intelligent control. That's why I don't think it's something like a weird weather thing. It appears to be intelligently controlled. Are you mentally, physically, and or spiritually prepared to accept the reality of extraterrestrial, interdimensional entities or intelligences should their existence be revealed? Absolutely. I got so much other shit I'm dealing with right now. Go ahead, add it to the fucking plate, bro. Now's the perfect time. We're all just trying to get our goddamn lives back in order. The US government could come out tomorrow and be like, hey, we just want you to know interdimensional aliens from the 14th dimension of Zeta Reticuli have actually been visiting for the last 2 million years. And we are actually a seeding experiment where they put human DNA onto the planet, and that's where we came from. And I'd be like, okay, cool. Can I just figure out what the fuck is going on with the CERB? Are my cousins and my family members gonna be okay for the rest of the pandemic? When am I getting my second vaccination? All right, let's fucking go here. So yeah, I'd be all right with it. Don't you think aliens would explore the galaxy similar to us with unmanned exploratory crafts? That's why I think that it could be likely that what we're seeing are drones, like just drones sent out to record evidence of life elsewhere. There's nothing on there. It could just be artificial intelligence. Could just be artificial intelligence that we're seeing. Okay. Let's see here. Scrolling down. There's a lot of questions, chat. If I don't get to your specific question, I apologize. Feel free to ask it again, okay? What specific examples is the paper citing? You'd have to go and see the paper that I put into Discord. I put the Discord in the general channel of... I put the link to the paper in the general channel of Discord. You can find it there. Okay. Do you have a theory as to why they appear to be interested in the ocean so much? I think it's a good hiding place. Good hiding place. Hasn't been infested with humans. What do you think of doing a night where we could chat with you on Discord on stream and talk theories? I have a bunch that I'd love to run by you. Not a bad idea. I'll think about that. Elon Musk is an alien. It's actually my problem with Elon Musk. Elon Musk doesn't believe in aliens. You know why Elon Musk doesn't believe that like UFOs are anything interesting? He has a very specific argument. He says, if they were aliens, someone would have told me by now. Okay, Elon fucking Musk, like the world is holding their breath to tell you about aliens. If they were aliens, someone would have told me. I would know, believe me. If aliens were a thing, Elon Musk would know. It's so stupid. I heard him on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about it. Because here's the thing. He was like, I'm not even kidding, chat. You can go and watch it. Go watch Elon Musk on Joe Rogan. Because he's like, if aliens were a thing, I think I would know about it. And Joe Rogan says, oh, what do you think about the USS Nimitz encounter in 2004? And he goes, what? What's that? He doesn't even know something that's public fucking information. He had no idea. Joe Rogan was like, what do you think of the Nimitz encounters? And he was like, what's that? What did you say? Never heard of that before. Okay, Elon, yeah. Sick, dude. You're the arbiter of knowledge in the fucking world of UFOs. Okay, more questions. Let's see here. Why do you think some scientists are comfortable with trying to find life or artifacts outside of our known universe, but don't want to look at any of the sightings from here on Earth? Ooh, that's a fucking great question. I have no clue. Man. The whole scientific approach to UFOs is so bamboozling. Why is this not just something that so many people are fascinated in looking into, you know? Is it just me, or do many of these sightings seem water centric? Yeah, it is. Absolutely. The number of sightings over the ocean and at our nuclear facilities are through the roof. There have been entire books written on the interaction of UFOs and our nuclear facilities. It's crazy. We have actual documented examples of UFOs. Once again, I'm not saying that these aren't human craft, but there are documented incidents of UFOs turning off or turning on nuclear facilities, which is terrifying. Why do we not have any really clear pictures or videos of these things? I think that's a very good question, but consider this. If what we are seeing is under intelligent control, then you can't assume that you're going to be able to film it the same way that you'd be able to film a wild turkey vulture, right? If what we're seeing represents an intelligence that is far in excess of human intelligence, you have to consider the fact that something is in their thinking, even if it's artificial intelligence. So you can't remove the element of intelligence from some percentage of the UAP phenomena, and just assume that because we want to take pictures of it, we should be able to take better pictures of it. There's some intelligence there. So that's what I would say. Could they be the great filter? That's a great question. I wonder if they are our great filter. Say that aliens invaded Earth. Who would you choose to represent the human race and speak on our behalf? Gary Busey. Please tell me what is playing on your screen right now. The Matrix. You're looking into it right now. What if it could be what if it could be us from the future at some point, accidentally coming back to this time or something on that line? That's actually a fairly common theory. A lot of people think, what if it's humans from the future who have somehow figured out a way to travel back in time because far enough in the future, they've developed the technology to bend space-time, but because we're some violent, tribalistic, barely evolved apes, we destroy a lot of our historical evidence. So they want to come back in time to see what things were like a million years ago. So that is actually a theory that is talked about. It's us from the future traveling back in time to observe ourselves so we can understand what happened to ourselves. So it's kind of an interesting one. Not much evidence to support it, but it is a theory. Okay, let's see here. If you were an alien in one of those Tic Tac-like devices, would you really want to make your existence known if you knew that humans would react predictably scared and panicked? Here's the thing, though. I don't think that we can map a human value system to something that could be millions of years more advanced than us. You know what I mean? I'm not comfortable trying to create a construct of what the morality would be like for something that had 50,000 years more time to evolve compared to us. I think trying to assign human value systems and human ethics and human morality to something that could have evolved socially, spiritually, physically, technologically, scientifically for another 50,000 years. How do we know that they aren't letting themselves be seen in the exact amount that they're letting themselves be seen? Because this is like their gentle way of introducing themselves. Just a little bit. Just a spoon feeding us a little bit at a time so we don't go insane. Maybe that's part of their program. Who knows? Around World War II, the U.S. collected as many world-class geniuses that they could to develop new technologies for war, i.e. the Manhattan Project. Do you think it's extremely unlikely that over time they developed spectacularly radical new technologies and are keeping it secret due to the dangers of misuse? SAP stuff access is insanely compartmentalized and secretive. Even the POTUS can't get access in many cases. Yeah, I don't think it is. Only because of the it would require many areas of science to be completely revolutionized. Thermodynamics, propulsion physics, all the rest would have to be totally complete paradigm shifts. It would be the level of realizations as discovering that the Earth isn't the center of the universe or that it's not flat. Those same level of revelations would be required in order for us to replicate what we've been seeing in some of these UAPs. And I just don't see it being that likely that anyone has got there yet and has kept it completely secret. They have a monopoly on the science and not a word of it has leaked out. That doesn't seem very likely to me, especially because it's been decades, not a peep, not a jot, not a tittle in 30 years, 75 years, doesn't seem super likely to me. Let's see here. I know Canada is pretty open with UFO sightings and related things. Have you ever deep dived into any of those reports? No, I've taken a look at a few. So for people who don't know, America is one of the only most secretive countries in the world when it comes to UFOs. A lot of other countries are very open. In Canada, you can go to the Canadian government website and look at every UFO report they've ever received, basically. And the ones that they don't have any explanation, they just say, we don't have an explanation. If they see something really weird, they just say, explanation unidentified. That's it. Same with France. France has all of their UFO sightings online. Okay. What about cryptids? Do you think that there's the possibility that the sightings of cryptids could be related to extraterrestrials? I honestly don't know much about cryptids. I couldn't really weigh in on that one just because I honestly don't know much about it. Okay, now let's see. Scrolling down. These are great questions. These are fantastic questions. If you want to ask me a question, just tag me in chat and ask your question, and I'll see if I can get to it. What do you think about Stephen Greer? I used to really like and respect Stephen Greer. I liked a lot of his movies. He had a big part to do with the movie Unacknowledged, which is a fantastic movie. And he basically wrote Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, or had a big part in that as well. I used to think highly of him, and now not so much. Now I don't think so highly of Stephen Greer. There's a lot of reports coming out that they've found flight times for small single prop Cessnas, if that even makes sense. Does that make sense? Are Cessnas single prop? Anyway, single prop planes dropping flares around where he's doing his CE5 stuff. So for anyone who doesn't know, here's the 30-second version. Stephen Greer is a man who likes to Stephen Greer is a man who likes to think of himself as the Jesus of UFO disclosure. He thinks that he has been chosen. He's the Messiah of UFO disclosure. And he thinks that he's the one, he's the chosen one. He's the Neo of aliens. And what he says is he's developed this process called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, where you use meditation to try to communicate with aliens. And the thing is that now that other people are stepping into the picture and are having their voices heard, Luis Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, Hal Puthoff, people that were the heads of CIA, people that were the heads of Boeing Phantom Works, Stephen Greer now is doing things like he had a symposium to talk about new UFO evidence, and you could only access it online, and it was $79.99 US for a virtual fucking ticket to an internet symposium to talk about UFOs. As soon as someone starts charging $80 a ticket to listen to a guy talk to his fucking 2003 Toshiba laptop about UFOs, I immediately become suspicious. And then he really added press X to doubt to the fire, because during the symposium he was like, now I know that there's some people coming out lately talking about UFOs and stuff. They don't know anything. Christopher Mellon is a disinformation agent. Luis Elizondo is a disinformation agent. Hal Puthoff is a disinformation agent. The report that's coming out from the government is a disinformation report. And the fact they put those videos out, that's disinformation. If you want the truth, you can only listen to me, only I know the truth. You have to just believe what I say and make sure that you pay $79.99 and follow me on Patreon and my OnlyFans at sexystephengreer.xl. So, I used to like Stephen Greer, and I think that he had some good thoughts. Like, he had some good insights about consciousness and stuff like that. But then he kind of went off the rockers and thinks that he has like a personal monopoly over the topic. We should try and watch along with the Abyss on that USO topic. I've never even heard of it, but it sounds fucking spoopy. Would you ever do a stream on USOs? I would. Yeah, I'll see if I can put together a fucking USO stream, man. Could this maybe be an anomaly of consciousness? Baphomet, that is one thing that I honestly don't know. Some people are starting to wonder if this is something like the Copenhagen interpretation of the double slit experiment. Okay, chat, can I take a minute here to just sort of explain? I know that was a bunch of word salad. I'll take a minute to sort of explain that. So for anyone who doesn't know what the double slit experiment, here's what the double slit experiment is. Back in the day, what they did, they had a sensor board, and in front of the sensor board, they had two tiny little slits, and they would fire a single electron or a single photon through one slit or the other. And then they would expect on the back to see two impact patterns, whether it had gone through this hole or that hole. Instead, what they found was an interference pattern where it was like a hazy band, and then a little bit of a bigger band, and then a bold band, and then another bold band, and then a little bit of a hazy band, and then a little bit of a hazy band. And that's what they would have expected to see if the photons or electrons had been traveling as a wave. But they know that they weren't traveling as a wave because they were controlling the emission one at a time. How do you get an interference pattern that you would expect from a wave pattern if you're firing them singly? And that leads to what's called the Copenhagen interpretation. And the Copenhagen interpretation says that what decides the point of impact is the measurement made by a conscious observer. This is why you'll hear this also referenced as the conscious observer effect. The idea is that until a conscious observer makes a measurement, the photon or electron only exists as a wave of probability. So pretty much, consciousness is a really, really weird, bamboozling phenomenon that we have absolutely no real explanation for. But there does seem to be some sort of interaction between consciousness and our reality. So the theory is that maybe some UFO phenomena are just people in a certain state of consciousness, whether it's stress or anticipation or whatever, that are generating these things, kind of like a holographic projection. I don't know too much more about it to be able to state one way or the other, but it's an interesting theory. Okay, scrolling down. These are excellent questions, chat. These are excellent questions. I hope you're enjoying it. Of course I am. I just love talking to you, chat, and hanging out. Okay. Okay. Are the examples all those clips from the news lately? There are a bunch of clips in the news lately that are being discussed. Thoughts on Area 51 and other similar sites? Are they in fact hiding alien crafts and or extraterrestrial beings? So here's the thing. I don't know where I stand on the position of crashed craft. I would say I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. I'm sort of withholding speculation until I see some more data, some more evidence. But do I think that it's possible that some government or non-government agency has in its possession entire or partial crafts or remnants? Yeah, I think it's possible. Jacques Vallée seems to be under the impression that he himself has material from a crashed craft. And the way that they determine this, because they look ostensibly just kind of like metal alloys, is they look at the atomic level and they see sort of a molecular matrices that we don't have the technology to make. This sort of matrices, the way that things are arranged at an atomic level, is done in such a specific pattern that is not natural, but we also don't have the technology to do that ourselves. So it's just a little piece of metal, but the atomic structure is so weird and particular that it makes people like Jacques Vallée confident that it doesn't come from a human inventory. Okay, let's see here. What are your thoughts on simulation theory? You don't want to know my thoughts on simulation theory. Do you want to know my thoughts on simulation theory? I'll tell you if you want to go down that path. You want to know my thoughts on simulation theory? Here's something that I will say. I know that this is going to sound weird, and who's the horror writer? Steven Spielberg? No, not Steven Spielberg. Who's the horror writer? Dr. Seuss? No, Stephen King. Stephen King. There we go. Got it. Stephen King. I know this is going to sound like a Stephen King novel. Like I'm going to start it off by going, coming next summer, a story so scary. There are some aspects of simulation theory that I actually refuse to talk about at all. There are aspects of simulation theory. I've dove so deeply into simulation theory. There are some aspects of it that I refuse to talk about. Because to give you some idea of how fucked up the simulation theory line of thinking gets, the simulation theory subreddit was permanently shut down because they had a number of users saying things like, I am certain that we are in a simulation, and if you can't prove to me by 12 p.m. Eastern that I'm not in a simulation, I'm going to kill myself. And then they did. So the whole subreddit got permanently shut down by Reddit. Because people were saying, I know I'm in a simulation, and if you can't prove that I'm not, I'm going to kill myself. And then they did. So simulation theory can get super, super fucked. But this is what I'll say. This is what I'll say about simulation theory. And this is just some interesting food for thought. We're not going to go too far down this rabbit hole because it gets pretty fucking weird. But what I'll say is this. All you need to do is consider the following questions. Is it possible that intelligent life has developed anywhere else in the universe, in the observable universe? Is there any likelihood that intelligent life has developed anywhere else in the universe? Is it possible that intelligent life developed somewhere else in the universe in a star system that is considerably older than ours? Our star is about 4.5 billion years old. I Googled it before the stream. The oldest recorded star is 13.2 billion years old. So it seems like there's a window of about 9 billion years where other stars could have formed, and other intelligent life could be significantly older than humanity. It's true, we know from human behavior that we make simulations. The Sims, SimCity, Arma, various simulations. We make simulations right now. Would you agree that simulation technology for humans has improved over the last 30 years? Would you say that our ability to simulate things has improved over the last 30 years? Okay. A lot of people saying yes. Okay. Would you agree that if we don't annihilate ourselves, let's say somehow we all figure out how to get along and humanity unites and we all sing Kumbaya and hold hands, do you think that we would continue to advance our simulation technology if we were around for another 50,000 years? We're around for 50,000 more years. We don't annihilate ourselves. Do you think we'll have more advanced simulation technology in 50,000 years? So here's where it gets weird. If there's another star somewhere, an old star with a civilization that has been around for thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of years longer than us, and they developed simulation technology, their simulation technology is likely to be so much more advanced than anything we can conceive of that their simulations would be indistinguishable from reality. And it's possible that they would run billions of iterations of these simulations simultaneously to collect data. So if you were to put all the potential universes on a dartboard, the real universe is on there, but then there's simulated universes everywhere else, and you throw a dart at it, what is the likelihood that you're going to land on the real universe versus a simulated one? And therefore, what is the likelihood that we are in a simulated universe versus a real one? How would we even tell? How do we know that everything we feel and think and all the emotions we have aren't just really, really, really advanced sim bars? and all of our crystals are just dark purple after the last year. So that's my thoughts on simulation theory. Kind of fun to entertain, but I figure whatever. Even if it was true, even if the government came out tomorrow and they're like, hey, just letting you know, it's all a simulation. So you know you're all in an alien video game, I'd be like, bro, turn up my hand sliders, dude. Why'd you fuck me off with the hand sliders, bro? Crank that shit to the, what the hell? Come on, man. So I wouldn't worry about it. Wouldn't really change my life at all. I still feel what I feel and think what I think and enjoy what I enjoy, so I don't care. If I'm someone's very advanced game of Sims, all right, sick, dude. Sounds good. So that's what I would say to that. Let's see here. Scrolling down, more questions. I still say that UFOs are just someone in admin mode, no clipping around the map. Damn it. Turn off your cheat codes, aliens, you jerks. Teleporting around the world. Damn it. I lost my loot. Now I gotta turn on no clip. I have a friend in the U.S. Air Force, and when the document came out about the UAPs, he basically said, I see, it's not aliens. Could be another country's technology. They got to them. That's how it happens. Okay, now let's see here. But our understanding of an energy form powerful enough for a simulation of this magnitude will never exist, in your opinion? When you look at things like Dyson spheres or galaxy-sized flotillas, possibly hovering somewhere out in the dark quadrant of space, where we expect there to be 2,000 galaxies, and instead we see 6. What if that whole space is just filled with an intelligent, self-aware, technological cloud? You know? As much as I love the idea of aliens, I can't help but think about how easy it could be to wipe each other out on accident. Think about all the diseases that happen when 2 new populations come into contact with each other on Earth. Now imagine an entire planet with diseases that evolved independently that nothing on Earth has encountered to develop immunity to. So while aliens are cool, one false step and we could easily wipe one or both populations out. I would say that's not necessarily a big concern, only because one of the things that we can be fairly confident of is that if UAPs are intelligently controlled, they've been observing us for a long time. And if those fucking idiots are flying around at 46,000 miles an hour in inertial dampening, no flight surface, no control surface vehicles, and they don't know about things like malaria, then what the fuck? They have technology 50,000 years further ahead of us and they've never researched the fucking flu. They haven't looked down and see people shitting their brains out and go, maybe they're sick. So I would say, I think that if UFOs are under intelligent control, then whatever intelligence is in there probably can deduce that we make each other sick all the time. Fucking children coming up to you to tell you a secret. They cough their secrets directly into your face and then you get your whole family sick and shit. They're probably watching us like a bunch of dogs attacking a corn on the cob at a park or something. That was a weird example. I'm just going to get caught up real quick on Streamlabs chat, and then I'm going to continue answering your questions, okay? Also, if you've been sitting for the last hour, now's a great time for a stretch break, okay? I'm going to get caught up on Streamlabs real quick, and then I'll keep answering questions. So stay tuned. And if you see ads in just a second, you're seeing them because I'm running an ad block to turn off ads in the channel. Do not nopers me. Don't you do it, chat. Don't you nopers me. Me-Face, thank you for the 13 months, my friend. Jojo, thanks for the 300 biddies. So Melty, I found out male bees die after sex, so sadly their life cycle is honey, nut, cheerio. Liz, thanks for the $5. Does Kiki like aliens? VIP them? Absolutely not. Liz, does Kiki like aliens? Well, what I'll say is that Kiki has one of those 6-headed alien egg spewing sex toys that she's very fond of, I'm sure. Lusterberry, thanks for the 11 months. Algernon, thank you for the 11. Giving Quiet Sign with the 18. Bite with the 5. Spagooter Dude, thank you for the 8 months. Donka Besa with the 21. Clay Plus Plus with the half of a year. Butter S79 with the 11. Lumber Lungs with the 20. The Panda Chocobo with 100 bits. Thank you for those. Elegant Mess, thank you for the 5 months. Small Queen, thank you for the 14. Freezer Burn, thanks for the 666. You're doing an amazing job covering this topic. Thank you. Thanks for the 666. That's nice of you. Gosky Freaking Gator, thank you for the 5 gifted subs, by the way, you beautiful SOB. Love you, Gosky. Caliph the Red, thanks for the 6 months. Awoken Angel, thank you for the 24 months, 2 years. Gear Grinder, thank you for the 100 bits. Now, bear with me here. Going upon the assumption of this being something paranormal, I'm going on a gut feeling that I don't think these things are hostile. I think we're just being observed. They're just as curious about us as we are of them. Whoever might be out there are like, oh God, we're seeing a whole new civilization being born into our space age. As much of a blow to the ego as it is, I think their relationship to us is like curiosity and affection we show to apes. Yes, I agree. I'll touch on that in a minute. Shaka Narnar, thank you for the 26 months. MB Live, thank you for the 100 bits. You should totally take a look at the Kardashev scale. Humankind is at about 0.7 and compare it to what you just read to us. Yes, yeah, I'm familiar with the Kardashev scale. Isn't that interesting? Darkro, thanks for the 500 bits. Can you make a highlight of this part? Yes, I can. Absolutely. Pixel Glitch, thank you for the 13 months. Tim 70707, thanks for the Prime. Hambino, thanks for the 500 biddies. Did you know that there have been reports of UAP even way before Roswell? In World War II, the pilots who encountered them over the theaters of war in Europe and the Pacific reported them constantly and were eventually dubbed Foo Fighters by Allied governments. Pretty compelling to know that these instances have been ongoing and reported for decades, and the only thing that's changed is our ability to record them. Agreed. Metallica, thank you for the 500 bits. I found the part about observers being actively told not to report interesting. Do you think it's an admission of the existence of the real life Men in Black that's always alleged visiting people after sightings? I've heard some very compelling information there. In those Nimitz encounters, multiple pilots and multiple radar operators said that as soon as all the FA-18 Raptors got back, some unidentified Air Force officers arrived on a helicopter, took all of their data blocks, and left. That sounds kind of Men in Blackish to me, but I don't know. Maybe it's probably just some special forces intelligence thing. Saxolarium, thank you for the 7, my friend. Merrick, thanks for the 25. Wing Zero, thank you for the 14. Ned the Janitor, thank you for the 500 biddies. Thank you for reading my question. My pleasure. Ben Centennial, thank you for the 10 months. BCal, thanks for the 4. Ezra Mo, thank you for the 20. PC Tech, thanks for the 1,000 bits. As long as we understand that we are not the only intelligent life in the universe, we will be okay. Well, let's not get carried away by throwing around the word intelligent when it comes to humans, okay? Myself included. Dankies. Damn it, Sawyer, thanks for the 3 months. Trap Mandu, thank you for the 6. Eclipse Gaming, thank you for the 9. And Elsie Otter, thank you for the 18. SB Jiff, thank you for the $5. Okay, back to the questions. If you have questions, tag me in chat. I'll read maybe like 10 more questions, chat, and then we'll take it from there. Okay. Okay. If simulation theory is true, do you think UFOs could be our creators intervening sometimes, maybe applying a patch, so to speak? Yeah, it could be some sort of observational. Let's go see what's going on. That's the camera in Sims checking on us. Poo Poo the Dude says, "What are your thoughts on Paul Hellyer, ex-Canadian defense minister, and his take on aliens, specifically the tall whites?" I don't have a very strong opinion of Paul Hellyer, only because he, by his own admission, only started talking about UFOs and aliens and stuff like that after he was in office. And I just think it's weird. Sometimes it feels like he tries to represent his beliefs as though he developed them with access to information when he was working in the government. And then it turns out that he only started looking into it when he was like 72. And he comes up with some very strong statements, like he knows for a fact that this kind of alien exists and this kind of alien doesn't exist. And these kinds of aliens have been here and these kinds of aliens haven't been here. But he didn't get any of that information when he was the defense minister. So I find it kind of, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Thoughts on the little green or gray men in UFOs are actually organic suits or vessels and not beings. Due to the demands of long distance space travel, time, G-forces, etc., perhaps another society in the cosmos created organic suits that can withstand these demands, and they interface with these suits from extreme long distances. Okay, are you ready to get a little bit weirder, chat? Because we're gonna get a little bit weirder here. Okay, we're gonna get a little bit weirder here. So Luis Elizondo is pretty good at answering any question that he believes he can, according to his NDAs. He's signed to some pretty intense, long-term NDAs because of his work in ATIP. And when he can't answer a question, he just says, he either doesn't say anything or he says, I can't answer that question. So what I think is weird is he recently did an interview with a YouTuber who really looks into UFOs quite a bit. And this YouTuber said, Lou, is it true that some part of the UFO phenomenon appears to have a cognitive human interface, meaning that human consciousness somehow seems to be interacting with the technology? And Lou refused to answer. And then he said, do you think that this has anything to do with a 25-year CIA program where they were investigating the interactions between human consciousness and the UFO phenomenon? And Lou refused to answer. And when you listen to this guy talk, he genuinely doesn't have a flair for dramatic. He's not a guy who likes to be theatrical or, you know, create hype for no reason. So for him to refuse to answer those questions, for me, is something that makes me go, ha! Yeah, so Wes, I think it's possible that there could be some element of interaction with consciousness or something, you know? Maybe those are just like meat robots and the consciousnesses are piloting them. Who knows? Okay, have you read Hail Mary by Andy Weir yet? He wrote The Martian, really cool exploration of a human meeting an alien species in current times. I haven't, but I'm gonna have to check that out. Do you think that there's the possibility that extraterrestrial tech was given to ancient civilizations such as Egyptian and Greek history? And if so, would they come back to try to study the Earth and how humans are affecting it? SB Jiff, I wouldn't doubt if UFOs, if there was non-human intelligences, if they have been here, I wouldn't doubt that they've been regularly visiting humanity. We just either haven't believed or haven't had access to any of the historical documents, or there are no historical documents. How do we know that Cleopatra wasn't kicking it with Glorthlop from Zeta Reticuli? Maybe she was. We have no idea. Maybe it's written somewhere in the hieroglyphics, and maybe some of the weird cave paintings and shit that we see are actually a reflection of that. You know what I mean? Give me a second here, because I'm going to see if I can find something for you. Is this it? Nice. Okay. This is called, I think this is called the 1516, let me see what it's called, 1516 UFO incident. The 1561 celestial phenomenon over Nuremberg. So this is something that was witnessed by many people in Nuremberg, and this is what they saw. This is the painting of what they saw in Nuremberg in the year 1561. What the fuck is this? You can see the city down there, and then look at all this shit. What the fuck is all this? And this was witnessed by hundreds of people. This is a painting from 1561, from the 1561 Nuremberg event, and hundreds of people saw this shit, this tic-tac-toes going on in the sky. This bundle of nuts and bolts going on in the sky. So, yeah, I would say that I think there is evidence that people have been making these sorts of observations for a long time and probably just haven't had an explanation for it, probably interpreted it through the lens of some religious phenomenon. Okay, let's see here. If one were to crash tomorrow, what do you think would happen? Would the government share all the information or keep it secret and use it to get ahead of the others? I don't necessarily think those are mutually exclusive. I think the government would try to keep it secret because they're afraid of what would happen if people started really finding out more about this. I think they would be, I just don't think that they would want to say, yeah, we have a crashed craft and it's a UFO and it appears to be from outer space. They would never want to do that because it would be a massive security breach, and they're going to want to understand it before they release that information, and they wouldn't understand it. They'd spend years trying to understand it and just continue to not understand it, and they would just say, okay, We'll share this information once we know what we're dealing with, and they'll just never know what they're dealing with. What's your opinion on Tom DeLonge? Tom fucking DeLonge. Tom fucking DeLonge. Yeah, Tom, the government military industrial complex was just waiting for the opportunity to talk to the public about UFOs. And who better to do it than fucking singer of Blink 182, Tom fucking DeLonge. God. I don't doubt that he has access to some information, but not as much as he thinks. I wouldn't doubt that he has some information and has like actually been talked to by some people in the know, but he's sort of like the Stephen Greer. He's sort of got a bit of Stephen Greeritis. He thinks that he's the chosen messiah for the UFO phenomenon. Fucking Tom DeLonge, singer of Blink 182. Good guy, heart's in the right place. Don't know that I think he really has the key to immortality here. My favorite UFO footage is the Phoenix Lights. I'm assuming you've definitely seen that one. Chat, if after this conversation you want to look up a really, really interesting UFO documentary, I think it's available for free on YouTube, especially in America, and it's called I Know What I Saw. You should watch it. It's talking to a bunch of the eyewitnesses of the Phoenix Lights, and it's so interesting. It's so interesting. So if you want to watch a really interesting UFO documentary, check out I Know What I Saw on YouTube. Okay, let's see. I'll do 5 more questions. Okay, 5 more questions, chat. Do you think that there is a connection between extraterrestrials and the events in the Bible? I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. The Vatican Council of Dioceses just met on, I think, like June 15th to discuss the existential and theological questions that would be posed by receiving confirmation of the existence of extraterrestrial life. So I think religion and mainstream religion is actively interested in participating in the conversation about non-human intelligences, and I wouldn't doubt if some kind of UAP phenomena had something to do with various scriptures in the past. In fact, there's a Vedic scripture specifically about UFOs. It's a scripture they just uncovered recently that is explicitly about extraterrestrial visitors, so that's kind of cool. What do you think of the people who claim that they saw a UFO while at school? I think the Rua, Zimbabwe aerial school event in Africa is one of the most compelling UFO stories ever. For anyone who doesn't know, long story short, a group of 60 children and more than 4 staff members witnessed a silver craft descending from the sky into the field outside the school. And this group of 60 kids and staff went out to investigate it, and they saw some people. I'm gonna see, you know what, I'm gonna see right now, chat. We're gonna risk it for a biscuit. I'm gonna show you something. I don't think I'll get DMCA'd, but I'm gonna show you something just because I think it bears careful contemplation. It's really, really, really interesting. Where is it here? Hold on. Aha! Okay, check it out, chat. Watch this. All right, watch this and let me know what you think. This is what I think. So basically, this is what I think is really interesting. Long story short, this craft landed and these entities got out of the craft and communicated telepathically with the children. And they started talking about this telepathic communication, which really concerned a lot of the adults. So Dr. John E. Mack, head of the Harvard Medical Board and PhD in child psychology, flew out to Africa to interview these children to see if they were being deceitful, if they'd been coached by other adults, if were part of a mass hallucination, why they were telling this story. And hearing them talk about it is one of the most fascinating things I have ever heard. It's so crazy. Hold on, let me see here. Okay.
That has collectively experienced this.
Because I want to make sure that I'm fitting within the purview of fair use. But basically, he interviews all these children, and you can see it doesn't really feel like they're coached. They're just sort of describing what they saw, and this convinced John Mack so much that he went on to write a book called The Believer, because he was not expecting it to be so convincing. But after interviewing all those kids, he said that he had absolutely no evidence to see that they were being deceitful or that they'd hallucinated or that they'd been coached by another adult. He had no evidence whatsoever to suggest that they weren't making genuine statements about what they had witnessed. So that's very interesting. And they've interviewed those same kids 20 years later, and all of them stick by their story. All of them say, yeah, that's what I said happened. One of the girls grew up and is now a woman who deals with really crippling post-traumatic stress disorder from that she tries to deal with. Or I shouldn't say really crippling post-traumatic stress disorder, but she still deals with a lot of issues that she has from that incident, and she tries to process it by painting aliens and UFOs on her Instagram page. She really struggles trying to integrate this experience because it was so bizarre. So anyways, I just think there's a lot of really interesting evidence out there. And one of the weird thing is all those children who reported having that incident claimed to have had a telepathic communication with the beings on the vessel. You want to see that? You want the link to that video? Okay. The children that saw this incident reported a telepathic communication with aliens saying, hey, you need to be better to your planet. You're destroying it, and you're getting a little bit reckless with your development of technology. Why would kids just make that up? They had no idea how to describe it. John is like, so what was the message that you got from these things? And like, like,
that we gotta be careful with our technology, and that we're being bad to the planet, and that we can't. Did you ever had a dream that you thought you wish you thought you wanted them to do you so bad you could do anything?
So they're like trying to convey this incredibly complex adult concept. They're like,
technology and with the putting pollution in the oceans.
They're like 5 years old trying to describe this. So anyways, it's really interesting. Now, with that being said, Chathu, my friends, unfortunately, we must now call to a conclusion our evening of UFO talk. Did you enjoy it, chat? I hope you enjoyed talking with me tonight. I, of course, love talking to you. If you're interested in knowing more, please make sure you're following the channel. And if you want to know when I'm going to be doing the next UFO stream, the best place to check is Twitter. Twitter.com/Milton T Pike 1. There's all those links right there in chat. Twitter.com/Milton T Pike 1 is probably the most reliable place to catch me. Make sure you're following me on all those social media at your discretion, at your leisure, chat. Now let's see, who can we throw the party on over to? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. We're gonna send the party on over to, I'm thinking we're gonna send, I know who we're gonna send it over to. Got it. Chat. We're gonna send the for Pete's ankle. For frick's fudge. We're going to send the party on over to SN Labat, who was generous enough to play some Mario Golf with us yesterday and is currently playing Mario Golf. So we're going to send the party on over to SN Labat. Whoa! Hey, Tortoise88, thank you for the 5 gifted subs and the resub, my friend. Let me see some pogs and claps for Tortoise. Thank you very much. Lil Dump Dump, thank you for that Prime Clarity. Thank you for the 7 months. Professor Death, thanks for the 26. Chat, I hope at the very least tonight's conversation just gave you pause to say, that's interesting. That's all I want. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. All I hope is that tonight's conversation simply gave you the opportunity to go, that's all I want. Thank you so much for entertaining this. Thank you for hanging out with me. Please be good to yourselves, okay? Please be good to each other. One of the things that I very much strongly believe is we have absolutely nothing to be afraid of. I think that whatever the UAP phenomenon is, if it is non-human, it has been here for long enough that if they would have wanted to annihilate us, they could have done it 1,000 years ago, and they haven't. So I don't think we should start being afraid now, okay? Have a wonderful weekend. I'm gonna see you tomorrow, chat, in the morning for some cartoons and some stuff like that, and maybe some Mario Golf, maybe even a couple games with Aaron. So we'll be streaming tomorrow, but please be good to yourselves, be good to each other. Have a wonderful evening. I will see you tomorrow for the next stream, double weekend stream fucking pog. Thank you for being here. I love you, chat. Take very good care.